The Pierce Astor Group headquarters was shrouded in a cold, crisis-laden atmosphere from the moment the doors opened. Everyone felt the tension, but office workers can never resist a bit of gossip. Whispers were already flying. Did you hear? That guy from the continent is coming to the shareholder meeting today. I remember 3 years ago, before the young miss had consolidated her power, he literally grabbed Mr. Astor by the collar and dragged him out of the chairman's office. Yeah, our Lily was no pushover back then either, but she was younger, smaller, and didn't have the same killer instinct she is now. That Orion Sky is different. The charm of a mature man, you know? He's tall, built, wears custom suits with a trench coat, walks with an aura that's 10 feet wide, and he's devastatingly handsome. I heard he's a quarter American from one of the old families. Rich, powerful, gorgeous. Who wouldn't be tempted? If you ask me, he and our Lily would be a true power couple. Yes, you got some nerve shipping them. If those two ever got together, it would be the end of the world. I heard that Lily had a sister, Yin, and Orion was in love with her for years. That's why he's always looked out for our Lily. The company veterans were dishing out prime gossip, and everyone was secretly eating it up. The moment Lily and Jax arrived, hand in hand, the chatter died. Seeing Jax, with his handsome face and top-tier physique, the tide of opinion began to turn again. Hey, who says our Mr. Pierce can't compare to Orion Sky? I think our guy is incredible. He and Lily are a perfect match. Last time Lily handed him that real estate development plan, I thought his little startup would completely botch it. But he ended up making us a few $100 million in net profit. Sure, a few $100 million isn't much to Lily, but the Pierce Astor Group is still a new entity with a lot of industries that need developing. For him to handle such a massive project in the midst of all that. That's when I realized Lily's judgment is terrifyingly sharp. How else could she have become the rightful head of the Astor dynasty? Since they couldn't gossip in person anymore, the conversation moved to social media. I was lucky enough to see Orion Sky once, 3 years ago. You know, when I first saw Mr. Pierce, I thought he looked familiar. Now that I think about it, there's a definite resemblance between him and Orion. Oh, my God. Please don't let this be some kind of stand-in for a long-lost love story. Our Lily deserves a real, sweet romance. Don't say it, but now that you have. I heard Orion is of mixed heritage, and that his maternal grandfather was from one of the reclusive founding families of this country. The Pierce family. The Pierces? Not the pharmaceutical dynasty, the other Pierces. Our country's history is long and deep. Think about which Pierce family is rarely mentioned anymore, but whose ancestors are appearing more and more in history books. Whoa, the East Coast Overlord Pierces? I heard they became reclusive and moved out to a private estate somewhere, rarely making public appearances. Their descendants don't even use the Pierce name anymore. They changed it to something else. Gasp! This city has the best gossip, so big and juicy. Now I'm actually looking forward to the meeting between Orion and our power couple. It's bound to be spectacular. Damn it, why can't I get promoted faster? Then I could be in the conference room getting the front row scoop. Inside Lily's office. Instead of going straight to the conference room, Lily and Jax had stopped here. Nathan had already informed her that Orion Sky had gone directly to her chairman's office upon arriving. He'd also passed on a message. Orion wanted to see her. As they entered, they saw a tall figure lounging in Lily's leather chairman's chair. His long fingers tapped idly on the desktop, which was piled high with famous snacks from all over the world. You kept me waiting. Look at all this. Don't you just love snacks? I brought a few chefs with me on my trip this time, just to make you delicious things. A new treat every day. Do you like it? Lily shot him a look and rolled her eyes. You're insane. Jax, don't mind him. He lost his mind years ago, Lily said, her tone uncharacteristically familiar. The way they could trade barbs like this showed a relationship that had reached a certain level of deep, complicated history. All right, little Miss Astor, what's the harm in me calling you you? Is it really worth being so vicious? Orion said, his tone playful. I even brought you all these snacks. I heard all the way over on the continent that things have been very exciting at the Astor Group lately. Can a guy come watch the show? Don't be so stingy. Orion stood up. He was a towering figure, with classic, deeply set European features, but his eyes were a piercing black, a testament to the creator's favoritism. And this must be your new contractual husband. Jackson. Pierce. Orion paused when he said the name Pierce, savoring it, as if the word itself held a world of meaning. Mr. Sky, welcome to the States, Jax said, extending a hand with perfect composure. He was calm, collected, the epitome of a gracious host. In terms of presence, he somehow managed to overpower Orion. Orion, who had spent his life steamrolling everyone, had never encountered a situation like this. As he seriously studied Jax's face, he felt the world tilt on its axis. UNC. Uncle. Jax raised an eyebrow, his suspicious gaze complex. He glanced at Lily, an entire conversation passing between them in that one look. Yeah, definitely a madman. He certainly didn't have a nephew this old. You must have the wrong person. I don't have a nephew your age. Besides, we're clearly from different backgrounds. How could you make a mistake like that? He turned to Lily. Lily, is he blind? Combined with what Lily had said, Jax was now genuinely questioning the mental state of this supposed kingpin from the continent. Orion stepped closer to Jax. His tall frame should have been oppressive, but he couldn't seem to diminish Jax in the slightest. The young man stood as straight as a pine tree, his aura exceptional, his handsomeness possessing a refined style that screamed he was not to be underestimated. At his side, Lily intertwined her fingers with his, their affection palpable. Just standing together, they were the picture of a perfect couple. To Orion, the scene was bizarre. He knew Lily. Back in their world, she was an incredibly difficult person to handle. She showed men absolutely no mercy. The amount of blood on her hands was no less than his. I'm not blind. You just look incredibly familiar, Orion said, his own uncertainty growing. His young uncle had been ambushed and kidnapped by enemies to be used as a threat against the family. In the chaos of the family's own internal power struggles, they were delayed in rescuing him. By the time they arrived, he was gone, vanished without a trace. His uncle had been 7 years old, already the smartest child in the family. That's why everyone had assumed he would be fine, that he would find a way to escape and wait for them. But they had all miscalculated, and that uncle was the one in whom the family's American bloodline was most pronounced. Oh, then you have the wrong person, Mr. Scott. I'm not the man you're looking for, Jack said, shaking his head, firmly denying any connection to this man whose identity was terrifying to any normal person. Is that so? Orion's eyes glinted with a dark light. He neither confirmed nor denied Jax's rejection, instead turning to tease Lily. Miss Astor's taste is certainly excellent. You look down on everyone at the Heirs Conclave, yet you picked the very best one. His existence is certainly proof of your good eye. In the entire country, you could count on one hand the number of people who dared to tease Lily Astor. Orion's familiar attitude made it clear their relationship was a close one. We're married, Lily stated, cutting him off. He is my husband. Whatever plans you have in this country, you don't need to hide them from Jax. We are one. I have already legally given Jax control of everything in the Astor family. He is the actual controlling shareholder here. Lily gave Orion no room for further banter, instead validating Jax's status with extreme seriousness. Her unwavering stance surprised even Orion, who had thought he was prepared. Little Miss Astor, you're just like your sister. She was always so decisive, and once she chose someone, she would give them everything. A shame, then, that Yin Yu had died too soon. So soon that he never had the chance to confess his feelings. He never had the chance to make her a promise, to protect her. He'd always felt the Astor women were too strong, too proud. Orion was drawn to Yin Yu's powerful personality, yet he couldn't help but want to test her limits, to see just how strong she could be. But what happened to Yin Yu was too sudden. He was completely unprepared. The next time you want to see her, all he got was everyone pointing to an urn and telling him, is in there, in that small, sunless, dark box. How lonely and scared she must have been. Yes, she was my sister, Lily said coldly. It's only natural I'm like her. Now, why are you really here, Orion? If you don't tell me the truth, I'll have headquarters send you back. Lily's words were merciless. To any man other than Jax, she was always indifferent and professional. Don't be like that, little Miss Astor. Look at you. You have no sentimentality at all. I was almost your brother-in-law. By extension, that makes us family. Are you so stingy you won't even let me stay at your home for a bit? Orion stood tall, a smile on his lips that didn't reach his eyes. You want to be a guest? Lily's gaze was sharp. Then I'll arrange for you to stay at the Astor estate. You cannot stay in my sister's old residence. You can pick any other place. After all, Orion and Yin Yu had never crossed that final line. It was completely improper for him, a man with no official standing, to stay in her sister's private rooms. Seeing the dark circles under Orion's eyes and how gaunt he'd become, Lily had already guessed. He probably didn't want to live anymore. He had come to this country looking for Yin Yu, but there was no Yin Yu Astor in this world anymore. Actually, I came for another reason, Orion said, his tone shifting. I need to find a trace of my maternal grandfather's family. They went into seclusion long ago, changing their names. Even my family has no way of contacting them. Lily, for this period, I suppose I'll be imposing on you. If you need me for anything at all, just say the word. Of course, Orion didn't think a powerful, decisive woman like Lily Astor would care about a promise or two from him. In that case, you can go work at JX Innovations, Lily said with a raised eyebrow. Go be Jax's assistant. You know how, right? She could accept Orion's favor, and she could certainly bear the cost of using him. It was simple. While Jax was already starting to make a name for himself, she had reviewed the financials for JX Innovations. Jax had a background in finance, but the company now spanned multiple industries, all of them emerging or with huge future potential. But the portfolio was broad and chaotic. JX Innovations desperately needed a president who could oversee the big picture. Jax had the vision, but he lacked an experienced mentor to teach him management. She had already chosen a candidate, one of the top CEOs in the country. But now, with Orion, an even more brilliant sucker, delivering himself to her doorstep, she'd be a fool not to use him. After all, she would give Jax the absolute best. If he wanted to run a corporation and conquer the business world, then she would give him the most powerful wings imaginable. Are you speaking English? He sputtered. He was a major figure in the European syndicate, only showing this much affability in front of Lily in Yinyu. And this little Miss Astor had the audacity to push her luck. You won't do it? What if I told you? I really do have a trace of your long-lost uncle. I'll do it. Orion snapped to attention. Lily, I'll treat Jackson Pierce like my own dear uncle. Just don't you go back on your word. Jack stood there bewildered. Wait, what? The deal is done. The kingpin of the continent is going to be my subordinate? That, Orion would agree, was exactly what Lily had expected. The man looked complicated, but among the old foxes on the continent, he was actually one of the easiest to handle. For no other reason than the regret he felt for Yinyu, which he had transferred entirely onto Lily. In the past, however, the proud and ruthless Lily had no need of his help. It was mostly Orion secretly assisting her from behind the scenes. But fundamentally, in all these years, he had never seen Yinyu's heartless, vicious little sister be so devoted to a man. This was juicy. He had to see it for himself. Besides, he was even more curious about what made this Jackson Pierce so special that he could tame an Astor woman. All right, you two go to the shareholder meeting, Lily said. Since you've agreed to be my Jax's assistant, there are a few old relics on the board who have been waiting to find fault with him. You can take care of them. Orion, don't forget our deal. I want Jax's position secure. Some things that should have stopped kicking long ago need to be kicked out of the game for good. Lily spoke with a gentle smile, a softness so profound that even Orion had never seen it before. But it sent a chill down his spine. The young Mrs. Red lips curved, her fingers brushing through her dark red hair, the smile itself an expression of pure disdain and arrogance. TSK. Miss Astor was exactly as he remembered. Pretending to be gentle was impossible. She was, at her core, a poisonous flower covered in thorns. Lily, I just got here and you're already using me as your weapon? Orion raised an eyebrow. You got this all figured out, haven't you? It feels like you've already written the script where I charge into the fire for you. He had been delayed on business and missed the anniversary of Yinyu's death, which was why he'd rushed here. With Lily's information network, how could she not know exactly when he would arrive at her company? The key was, Lily knew he was coming and had laid a trap from the start. The shareholder meeting was already underway before he'd even made a move, and it was being convened in his name. Those stubborn old fossils in the company probably thought he was here to target Jax, this illegitimate new master. They were likely sitting there, full of confidence, waiting for him to make a move on Lily, so they could kick Jax to the curb. TSK, what a beautiful dream. With Miss Astor around, even he couldn't guarantee he could touch a single hair on Jax's head. Everyone thought a powerhouse from the continent could land a serious blow to Lily in her own territory. But these people were short-sighted. They had no idea what Lily's status was on the continent. In short, where wasn't this young lady a force to be reckoned with? So what if I am? Lily countered without mercy. I am willing to let you protect my husband. Is that such an insult to you? With that, Orion truly had no comeback. Fine, fine. I surrender to you Astor women. None of you are easy, but such formidable sisters. Lily was still alive and well, but Yinyu was. Could the rumors about the Astor family be true? That the blood of Astor women had miraculous properties? If so, if Yinyu's body were still intact, could Lily's blood have? An immature thought flickered through Orion's mind. But Yinyu was nothing but ashes now. No matter what insidious plan he concocted, it was useless. Besides, unless Lily's own body gave out, there was no one on this earth who could take her life. Jack stood his ground, cautiously silent. For some reason, he felt a deep-seated resistance to this man from the continent. President Jax, Orion started, finding it impossible to say the word uncle. His own uncle, though he hadn't seen him in years, had an oppressive aura that commanded obedience from the inside out. Jax was no match for a figure like that. From the bottom of his heart, Orion maintained a wait-and-see attitude toward Jax, with no intention of showing him much respect. Lily knew this, but she didn't care. The man she chose. Even if Orion was unconvinced now, her Jax would find a way. What was the point of her using her own power to conquer people for Jax to manage? The talent under Jax's command needed to be people he had truly conquered himself, for the loyalty to last. If you can't say uncle, then call him boss, Lily said coolly. The identity of Orion's uncle couldn't be casually acknowledged. If word got back to the continent, it would cause an uproar. Lily didn't want to drag Jax into such a complicated mess. This kid isn't even as old as me. Orion was naturally unwilling. Lily, you're too. He was used to Lily's viciousness and was occasionally intimidated by her. But what right did this kid have? At the end of the day, he was just a pretty boy living off a woman. It was only because of his own upbringing and Lily's presence that he hadn't openly disdained Jax. Lily raised her head, her black pupils like bottomless whirlpools ready to swallow him whole. Her long fingers tapped rhythmically on the desk. In that instant, a violent, pathological, murderous aura began to emanate from her, threatening to consume the entire room. This was the scent of the young Mrs. Displeasure. Jax knew it all too well. The scythe, the chains, the steel needles. The scenes from the basement he'd stumbled into in his past life flashed through his mind. He instinctively moved to take Lily's hand. The young miss hated being defied. This Orion Sky had the capital to challenge and contradict her, but he should not have defied her. Jax's face turned cold. He clasped Lily's icy hand, then slammed his other palm on the desk. His gaze, sharp as a blade, fixed on Orion, utterly fearless and radiating a sharp, oppressive force. Call him. Boss, he commanded. You are not to defy the young miss. If the young miss wasn't happy, nobody was going to be happy. Orion froze. Good heavens, am I just a stepping stone in your marital power plays? But the dismissive, cynical look on Orion's face vanished. He had actually felt a strange sense of pressure from the aura Jax had just projected. Boss, he conceded. Is the young miss satisfied now? Orion stood up, reluctantly walked over to Jax, gave him a suspicious glance, and then strode out of the office with his long legs. Boss, he called back over his shoulder. I hope you can still command that kind of presence in a little while. Of course, this time, you'll have to show me something real. The implication was clear. For now, Jax was still coasting on the respect and benefits afforded by Lily. But when it was his turn to stand alone, he had to stand on his own 2 feet. After Orion left, Jax moved forward and hugged the woman whose body was trembling uncontrollably. Lily's emotions were spiraling again. She sat down, and Jax gently massaged her temples. Lily was acutely aware of the changes in her body. The crimson knot root was only a temporary fix. The root of the illness remained. Perhaps she really should pave a set path for everyone, and then leave this world with Jax. But after all she had been through, she found she was becoming reluctant. Reluctant to have Jax leave with her. Mrs. Jiang, the whole Jiang family, would be heartbroken. After Jax left, Lily sat in silence for a long time. Suddenly, she stood and ordered a car, preparing to return to Moonshadow Estate. Miss Astor, Nathan said quietly, Jessica and Chloe have both been placed in the water cell. Since you're in a bad mood, it might be a good way to let off some steam. Mr. Pierce is busy now anyway. He won't have time to come home and see you in a state he shouldn't. Moonshadow Estate. As soon as Lily returned, she saw an unfamiliar car parked at the entrance. She had just stepped into the grand foyer when Mr. Sterling rushed out to meet her. Young miss, young miss. Big news. Big news. Lily frowned, puzzled. Mr. Sterling had been with her for years and had witnessed countless major events, but he had never been one to lose his composure. What could possibly have him so flustered? Sterling, you're a veteran of Moonshadow Estate. Why are you acting so flustered? Nathan chided gently, though he was curious himself. No, it's Miss Isabel. She's here, and she brought an invitation. Young miss, I think she's been tricked. You have to come see. As Sterling spoke, Isabel Croft emerged from the drawing room. She usually favored light, gentle colors, but today she was wearing a striking, bright red cheongsam. The dress hugged her graceful figure, her long legs slender and elegant. She was radiant, as dazzling as a lustrous pearl. Even Lily had rarely seen her niece looking so happy. Aunt Lily, you're back just in time. I have some wonderful news to share with you, Isabel said, smiling as she approached. Look, this is the invitation to my wedding. You are the most important person to me and my love. You're the one who brought us together. Now that we're making it official, of course, you're the first one to get an invitation." Her voice was gentle, her eyes filled with a girlish charm. It was true, then, that wholehearted love could truly nourish a person, making them glow from the inside out. Lily looked up, a flicker of genuine surprise in her eyes. She had noticed before that Isabel felt something special for Jax's friend, Sam Cole. But Lily never thought their path would be any easier than hers and Jax's. She had seen Sam constantly pulling back. She had assumed that even if Isabel and Sam eventually got together, it would take some time. But now they had. As her aunt, Lily was happy for Isabel from the bottom of her heart. "Isabel, you and Sam are getting married?" For some reason, as Lily took the invitation, a pang of envy she didn't expect pricked her heart. Their love had finally come to fruition. And they were so fast, so quick to realize their feelings, so quick to enter each other's lives. More importantly, they were both healthy. They could surely grow old together. Lily rarely envied anyone. Even during her difficult youth, her pride never allowed it. She believed she could forge a path for herself that others would envy. But on the path of love, she truly envied Isabel and Sam. Lily opened the invitation, her fingers tracing the familiar golden embossed names. "I'll give you the estate at West Hills as a wedding gift. Isabel, the women in our family rarely find happiness and peace. I've always hoped you could stay away from the family's troubles. Now that you're getting married, as your aunt, I don't have much else to give. You always liked the scenery at West Hills, didn't you? That estate is just sitting empty. It's yours to use as your marital home." Lily's voice was full of warmth and sincere blessing. "Only Mr." Sterling's jaw dropped. "No way. I just thought Miss Isabel was being scammed into marriage. Her fiancé is Sam Cole." "Who is Sam Cole? He has nothing. Even the assets he has now were gifts from our young miss. What right does he have to marry an Astor woman? The Astor family. Such a prestigious name." But looking at it now, the young miss didn't object at all. It seemed he had been worrying for nothing. He had overstepped. Still, even if he could quickly accept this fact, would the rest of the Astor family really accept Miss Isabel marrying a young man with nothing to his name? "Aunt Lily, you're the best." Isabel cried. "Boo-hoo, you know my family. They might still be a little difficult to deal with." But the ultimate authority in the Astor family rested with its head. This meant that as long as Lily agreed, not even Isabel's own parents would dare to look askance at the relationship. This was the benefit of power. No one could question her decisions in the slightest, even if it concerned her own family. As long as it was Astor business, Lily could intervene openly. "Yes, I'll have my people prepare the wedding for you. Your family won't have any objections. Isabel, all you have to do is be happy." Lily had always been good to her niece, and not just because Isabel had always followed her around like a little tail, sometimes even arguing with Leo for the right to be her shadow. Lily, it seemed, had a natural leadership quality from a young age. No matter where she was, people were willing to submit to her. Her aura was one of absolute, crushing dominance. "Where is Sam?" she asked. Did he agree? Or was this not his choice? Lily raised an eyebrow. She knew a little about Sam. The fact that he hadn't appeared yet made her wonder if Isabel had persuaded him by locking him up. If Isabel had actually done that, Lily wouldn't have been surprised at all. "Miss Astor," I agreed. "I am willing to marry Isabel and make her my wife." Sam's voice rang out from nearby. "Even though I know I'm not worthy of her, the one thing I can guarantee is that I will give all my love to Isabel. I love Isabel." Sam had been standing not far off, feeling nervous. He had slipped out into the garden to call his parents and tell them he was getting married. A sophomore in college who hadn't even graduated suddenly announcing marriage. His family assumed he and Kira had finally worked things out. Sam had to explain the whole story, which took some time. His parents were worried he was being scammed. A college kid saying he was with a famous celebrity? It sounded like a daydream. They feared his recent breakup had broken his brain. Panicked, they were already packing their bags to come in New York City to find him. Sam couldn't stop them and had come back to discuss it with Isabel, only to overhear the young miss questioning their relationship. He instinctively refuted it, baring his sincere heart. "Is that so?" Lily's gaze was sharp. "But Sam, you're a friend of Jax's. You should know that once you marry an Astor woman, you can never betray her. The women of the Astor family could snuff you out with terrifying ease." Lily was speaking as Isabel's family, deliberately testing Sam's sincerity. Of course, his feelings were real now, but feelings could also change in an instant. For now, they had love, and that was reason enough to be together fearlessly. She was happy to bless this couple. "Miss Astor, you can rest assured," Sam said earnestly. "I have considered this very, very carefully. I don't want to make Isabel wait for me. Since we're in love, let's be together now. I won't make her live a hard life with me. I have potential. After I graduate, I won't be an idler. I will support Isabel. I will support our family. He had always been a talented and capable man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape his small town with his excellent grades. He wouldn't have consistently been at the top of his class at Kingston University, winning scholarships. He was just in the accumulation phase of his career. All he needed was an opportunity to unleash his potential. And with Jax as that opportunity, the talent Sam was now displaying was already enough to show he was a promising prospect. His life was destined to be anything but ordinary. Isabel's judgment wasn't wrong. She couldn't help but smile, watching Sam so seriously promise and profess his love for her. Unable to hold back, she strode over to him, threw herself into his arms, and hugged his waist tightly. Sam, to be your wife. I am the lucky one. It was so wonderful, so perfect. She was finally going to marry him. Isabel's invitation was delivered, and the date was set for just 1 week away. For the rich and powerful, time was never an obstacle to getting things done perfectly. With enough money, anything was possible. You don't have to worry so much about your accomplishments or whether you can support Isabel, Lily said, addressing Sam in her capacity as an elder. She was speaking from the heart. An Astor woman doesn't need to be supported. The best gift for her is just for you to be together. Sam, what Isabel wants is you. As long as you don't back down, no matter the circumstances, then her being with you is worth it. Miss Astor. No. Aunt Lily, thank you for your support. Isabel told me that in the Astor family, your opinion is the one she cares about most. Thank you for allowing us to be together, Sam said with genuine emotion. The sudden shift in his status, dropping a generation, was still something he was getting used to. Go on now. After the newly engaged couple left Moonshadow Estate, Isabel didn't go home. She took Sam straight to her talent agency. She strode into the entertainment company's executive offices, brazenly holding Sam's hand for all to see. The rumors about her and Sam had already spread through Kingston University, and the company had gone to great lengths to quash them. Now, seeing Isabel bring him right into the building, everyone's jaws hit the floor. No way, no way. Isabel was really won over by a college student who hasn't even graduated? This is too surreal. Isabel, you're being ridiculous. Even if I disagreed with your decision to quit the industry, you don't need to create such a huge scandal to defy me. The man in the president's office was Hank Croft, her uncle. Don't think that just because I'm your uncle, I have to protect you forever. I've pushed you to great heights over the years. Don't be ungrateful. Isabel walked nonchalantly into the office. She was tall, with a commanding presence. Though she maintained her usual gentle demeanor, her innate aura was sharp and domineering. She was like a new, miniature version of Lily Astor. Uncle, I'm not being ridiculous, she said, her tone icy, offering her so-called uncle no deference. I'm getting married to Sam. For years, out of respect for you being my uncle, I never questioned the career path this company laid out for me. But I've said from the beginning that I was only in the entertainment industry to have some fun. I've had my own company for 2 years now. Staying here was just a favor. Don't think that just because I call you uncle, you have the right to question my decisions. Isabel. Hank slammed his hand on the desk, looking like a disappointed parent. It's not that I'm against you getting married, but you have to consider the person. This college kid has nothing but his youth and his body. Are you really that superficial? Aren't you going to consider the future of the Croft family? Strictly speaking, Isabel was part of a branch of the family that had maintained its connection to the Astors through her mother. By taking the Astor name, they had leveraged the power of the dynasty for their own success, becoming, in essence, parasites. Isabel's popularity with Lily had only amplified their fortunes. But to marry such a low-status man instead of marrying for the family's benefit, that was selfish. TSK. A good body, good looks, and youth aren't enough. Isabel's voice dripped with sarcasm. Uncle, Aunt Lily has already approved our marriage. Your disapproval now is at a challenge to the head of the family. With Lily backing her, Isabel's spine was made of steel. I'm announcing my relationship with Sam right now, and no one can stop me. With that, she took Sam's hand, sat down on the visitor's couch in front of the chairman's desk, and took out her phone. She snapped a photo of their intertwined fingers. Sam, she said, her voice softening, I told you long ago you would never be my plaything. I want you as my rightful husband. I want to give you all the security you need. When Isabel Croft decided to do something other than her Aunt Lily, there was probably no one in New York City who could stop her. Using her verified Twitter account with its 50 million followers, she posted the photo of her and Sam holding hands. She added another picture, A dimly lit shot from that night, of Sam asleep in her bed, the faint red marks on his neck sparking infinite speculation. Even more explosive was a third photo, one where Isabel's hand was gently tilting up the sleeping man's chin. The atmosphere was charged with intimacy, their shadows tangled on the bed. It was a shot that, while not explicit, was scandalous enough to make people scream. By the time Sam saw the post, it was already trending, with millions of fans dissecting every pixel. OMG, I remember Isabel hinted she was seeing a college guy, but everyone thought it was for a role. It was real this whole time. Am I the only one who thinks our ice queen is the one who's more in love? This tender, intimate angle. Only someone deeply in love would stay up just to watch their partner sleep. Isabel, you're an icon. How could you be so down bad? I refuse to believe it. My goddess is the one who fell harder. Does this mean she's really getting married? To this college guy? Isabel, are you crazy? You can play with college boys, but marrying one is just wrong. The nation's sweetheart, conquered by some random college student. My heart is broken. The internet was flooded with voices of dissent. There were some well wishes, but they were drowned out by haters trying to dig up dirt on Sam's past. Strangely, though, nothing came up. It was as if his history had been scrubbed clean by a secret hand. This led netizens to speculate. Perhaps this Sam Cole wasn't just some ordinary student. Isabel's caption was simple: getting married. The guy's right here. At My Love Isabel, in photos, Sam had long run a fan account for Isabel, and it was one of the biggest ones, to the point where he'd even been an admin in the main fan group. His real name had been doxed a while ago. For him to suddenly win the goddess's hand was a massive shock to her most dedicated fans. Looking at the photos Isabel had posted, Sam could feel the love practically overflowing from the screen. They were back in her apartment now, but he couldn't forget the way her uncle, a man who had been so insistent, had instantly lost all his power the moment she mentioned Lily Astor. The young Mrs. Status in this city was unimaginable, and his best friend, Jax, was a true legend. He had managed to tame a woman of that caliber. Sam, what are you thinking about? After they made things official, Sam had been hesitant to move in so quickly, but he couldn't resist Isabel's soft-spoken persuasion and relentless persistence. He felt like he was no match for her decisiveness, and even less of a match for her gentle seductions. A woman's charm truly was a trap. He, Sam Cole, had fallen headfirst into it and had no desire to climb out. He was finally starting to understand how Jax felt, being held so tightly in the young Mrs. grip. I was just thinking, why did you take that picture of me while I was sleeping? What, you don't look good? No, it's not that. It just makes me wonder if I didn't try hard enough that night. Isabel laughed. Well, you can make up for it tonight. In the boardroom of the Pierce Astor Group, a group of old guard Astor shareholders sat ramrod straight. They had already heard that the young Miss and Jax had met with Orion Sky. Now, they didn't know what to expect or what kind of deal had been struck. Orion was the first to enter, his black, custom-made overcoat radiating a cool, aristocratic air. It was a relaxed confidence of the European elite, mixed with a fearsome, commanding presence. The men in the room looked at him with an innate reverence. In contrast, they viewed Jax, who had been handling company affairs from behind the scenes while still attending college, with deep suspicion, doubting any of his accomplishments. Mr. Sky, you've arrived. Please have a seat. An old man, one of the Astor veterans, stood up. He wasn't sure if the young miss would attend personally, so he gestured to the most important seat just below hers. He then turned to Jax. Mr. Pierce, since the young miss isn't here, you'll have to make do with sitting next to me. That seat over there is not for you. A man should know his place, don't you think, Mr. Pierce? Every mention of Mr. Pierce was a backhanded insult. It feigned respect while completely dismissing his role as CEO. In their eyes, he was just a pretty boy. The old man, Duncan Aston, was merely the sacrificial lamb sent to test Jax's mettle. His seat was at the far end of the table. Not the most humiliating spot, but enough to signal the collective attitude of the Astor factions toward Jax. With someone openly insulting Jax and the young Miss Nowhere in sight, the tension in the room ratcheted up. All sorts of theories swirled in their minds. Orion, meanwhile, was happy to sit back, cross his legs, and enjoy the show. He wanted to see if the kid Lily was so protective of had any real skills. Of course, if it came to it, he could reluctantly step in. Jax walked into the boardroom, ignoring Orion's two-faced attitude. In the world of men, rising to power through a woman was a source of shame. He had always intended to win them over with his own strength. Facing the aggressive provocation, Jax didn't respond. With calm composure, he walked directly to the head of the table, the chairman's seat, and sat down. Then, with a cool and steady authority, he looked up. Mr. Aston, The right to speak at a shareholder meeting is not granted to just anyone. If I recall correctly, you only hold 3% in non-voting shares, which gives you no right to comment on corporate decisions or rules. Therefore, you can leave now. This is a meeting for major shareholders. And since someone brought it up, everyone here should be clear on their own positions. Let's not have any stray cats or dogs embarrassing the company. Jax delivered the lines from his seat, as immovable as a mountain. The hesitant young man of the past had transformed into a calm, capable leader. With a flick of his wrist, he had silenced the room, crushing the scheming old guard with his sheer presence. Even Orion, watching from the sidelines, felt a thrill. This man, where did Lily find him? He's got some serious tricks up his sleeve. You, who are you calling a cat or dog? Duncan Aston sputtered, still defiant. His real issue was with the young Mrs. Decision. No matter his background, this man was not an Astor. Why should he get a piece of the Astor family's power and wealth? This company was full of wolves, all waiting for Lily to fall so they could carve up the empire. But then Jax, an outsider, had appeared, and through his marriage, he could legally claim a share of the spoils they had been eyeing for themselves as branch family members. Of course they were anxious. He was snatching meat right from their jaws. "Get out," Jax said, his voice low and steady. "Or do I need to have you thrown out?" His gaze was as sharp as a blade, and a collective gasp went through the room. That aura, that presence. Jax hadn't said much, nor had he lost his composure by shouting. But a single look from him sent a tremor through everyone's soul. This is just like Lily's presence. That terrifying, gut-wrenching feeling was all too familiar. How had this couple become so alike? Still, no matter how much Jax mimicked her presence, he could never possess her thunderous methods and capabilities. In a fight against these old foxes, he was still too green. TSK. President Pierce, why bother with your subordinates? You're in management now. Such a lack of magnanimity won't do. Another shareholder, one of the elders of the Aston family, spoke up. He could see that Lily had deliberately thrown Jax to the wolves and probably wasn't coming to back him up. Now it was a battle between them. The Astors were a massive American dynasty. The main family bore the name Astor, while the branch families like the Astons had similar but distinct names, a clear delineation of status. The Aston family had grown powerful under Lily's father, their influence deeply embedded in the group's network. Jax had learned all of this from Lily. His cold gaze fell on the man. The challenge was blatant, but Jax remained unfazed. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and then looked up. "Mr. Aston, the fact that you're still standing here is proof enough of my magnanimity, isn't it? Last quarter, there was a problem with the construction proposal for Starlight Studios. A $100 million discrepancy. And I haven't even settled that account yet. Now you're jumping up and down, telling me to be magnanimous? If I did that, wouldn't everyone else be able to ride my coattails to heaven?" Smack! Jax slammed the file onto the middle of the conference table. It was the file detailing the project's discrepancies, a mess that anyone in the business would recognize as shady. This was the work he had been doing silently since taking over the Pierce Astor Group. He remembered clearly from his past life. The Astor Group hadn't collapsed all at once. Besides him stealing the company's secrets, Lily had lost all interest in the group, allowing the Aston family to gradually devour it. She didn't seem to care about anything back then. But the fall of such a massive empire took time. Some things had started long before, perhaps when Lily first realized she wasn't going to live long and stopped caring. She let them nibble away like ants on an elephant, letting the rot spread. Relying on his memories, Jax had used Nathan to follow the threads, uncovering fatal evidence. Every one of them was dirty, and now, that evidence was the ace up his sleeve. The moment the file hit the table, Duncan Aston deflated, staring at Jax in disbelief. He looked as if he were seeing a newly hatched demon, breaking free from its cocoon. This was Jax, but he was also becoming the next Lily Astor. Watching this unfold, Orion finally understood. Lily's judgment had never been wrong. This young man was the epitome of a wolf in sheep's clothing. The evidence he had prepared was more than enough to establish his footing in the Pierce Astor Group. He had simply been waiting for the right moment to play his hand and settle accounts with these old dogs. And this was undoubtedly the perfect moment. What is the meaning of this? President Pierce, we've shown Miss Astor face by calling you that, but it doesn't give you the right to abuse your authority to slander your subordinates and use underhanded tactics to gain unsavory things. Duncan Aston flew into a rage. He couldn't possibly admit to this, but this was the terrifying part of Lily's strategy. She had long propped up two factions of the Aston family to keep each other in check. Duncan Aston led one. His rival, Ryan Aston, led the other, a seemingly conservative faction that had always been at odds with Duncan. Seeing Jax catch Duncan and seeing Duncan deny it, Ryan was tempted to jump in. But he hesitated. If Jax was targeting Duncan, he probably had dirt on him too. Ryan didn't dare make a move. With his rival neutralized, Duncan was trapped in Jax's gambit. Slander? Jax's voice was calm. Every word in this file is legally binding. Since you're questioning it, Mr. Aston, I won't handle this privately. Let's just submit it to the authorities. Of course, this can also serve as a reminder to everyone here not to make the same kind of low-level mistake. Honestly, these weren't sophisticated schemes. They would never have fooled Lily later on. But by then, her heart was dead to the world, and even if she noticed, she couldn't be bothered to care. That's what had whetted the appetites of the Aston family, leading to the group's eventual collapse. Now, Mr. Aston, one of Duncan's cronies interjected, trying to smooth things over. Since President Pierce is willing to discuss this with you, don't be so rash. It's just a few data errors in the project that caused a discrepancy. Just apologize properly to President Pierce. He won't treat you unfairly. Jax recognized the man as Duncan's advisor. He could see that Jax wasn't really trying to clean house and eliminate him entirely. What Jax needed was to establish his own foundation in the Pierce Astor Group. That couldn't be done just by completing a few successful projects. He needed connections, a network, and most importantly, his own loyalists. And until now, Jax had none. He was currently laying the groundwork for his own power base. And the best way to control people was to hold their weaknesses in your hand. This move had perfectly seized Duncan Aston by the throat. $100 million discrepancy. If Jax, backed by Lily, decided to pursue it, Duncan would undoubtedly face prison time. Ryan Aston would then become the sole power. Jax wasn't that foolish. He wanted to cultivate his own power. These old dogs had nothing he wanted except for their deep-rooted control over the group, which was something he could learn from. After all, he was still just a college student. He had a long road ahead in the world of business. He wasn't arrogant, but he wasn't naive either. He would conquer the Pierce Astor Group with his own strength and ease his wife's burdens. His Lily wouldn't have the energy to manage the group in the future. As her husband, he would not fail to protect her assets. Duncan Aston was sharp enough to read the situation, but even with his neck in a noose, he was reluctant to be tamed by Jax. $100 million project error was a drop in the bucket for the entire Pierce Astor Group. For Jax to use that to control him showed he underestimated the Aston family's greed. He ignored the mediator's attempt at diplomacy, scoffing at Jax's naivete. Jackson, do you really think you're the one calling the shots here? Even if this project loss is real, so what? The group doesn't need this project, and the Aston family can afford to cover all the subsequent costs. Even if you take this to the authorities, I could take full responsibility and walk away clean. Who are you trying to threaten with this pathetic leverage? Jackson, you're sitting in that chair. But do you really think you're worthy of it? At first, Duncan had been spooked, assuming Jax's move was an order from Lily. But on second thought, the young miss was never this subtle. If she wanted him gone, he wouldn't still be in this boardroom. Unless she was using him and the entire Aston family as a whetstone to sharpen Jax. That idea was too insidious and unnecessary. For Pretty Boy, all she needed to do was clear his path and protect him. There was no need to train him to be strong and powerful. That would just be letting an outsider become her master. After mulling it over, Duncan's inherent disdain for a kept man like Jax won out. He decided to call the bluff. No matter how big a mess he made, Orion's sky from the continent was right here. Surely, he wouldn't be left without an escape route. With every move, he watched Orion's reaction. Duncan Aston, so you're that impressive? Huh? Not even afraid of federal prosecution, Jax said calmly. Of course, I don't care how you evade the law. But the Starlight Studios project is just the tip of the iceberg. Are you really brave enough to expose the filth underneath? I gave you a chance to surrender, but since you're unwilling, perhaps all those hidden transactions should see the light of day. Jax remained seated, his posture unwavering. He knew the Aston family wouldn't be so easily tamed. Sometimes, you had to use force to leverage power. Little O, what do you think? Jax had laid out his threat, then casually glanced at the man who had been enjoying the show the entire time. Orion was lounging comfortably in his leather chair, savoring Jax's performance, looking completely detached. But when Jax suddenly called out to him, he nearly choked. Little what? Little O? Who the hell are you calling little? More importantly, it's not about the little. Is little O something he can just say? Forget him. Not even Lily has ever called me that. How dare he? The entire office fell silent enough to hear a pin drop, punctuated only by the sound of old men sucking in sharp breaths of air. A cold, bizarre atmosphere descended. The men in the room, though not on the same side, all wore the same shocked expression. Their eyes darted around frantically. What? What did you call me? Orion, the powerhouse from the continent, felt his proud, aristocratic aura shatter under the weight of Jax's little O. Little O, no. You're my assistant. Am I supposed to call you Mr. Sky? As soon as Jax said this, the men in the room silently lit a candle for him in their minds. But that wasn't even the worst of it. The next moment, Orion, who should have exploded in a rage, suddenly burst out laughing. It was a grating, chilling sound. Yes, yes, President Pierce is my boss. Of course, you can call me whatever you want. Orion's submission made everyone's jaw drop. What the? That's it? One of them actually dared to say it, and the other one actually accepted it. This is the kingpin of the continent. The entire Pierce Astor group should be bowing to him. What kind of dirt does Jax have on him? Duncan Aston's defiant attitude vanished, replaced by utter despair. Jax had already exposed his dirty laundry. When he first mentioned Starlight Studios, Duncan's heart had skipped a beat, but he had gambled that Jax couldn't possibly have dug any deeper. He was betting that Jax didn't have a strong enough hand to crush him. But now, Jax had not only revealed he had more dirt, but he had also openly displayed his connection to the continent. Could it be that Jax wasn't just some ordinary college student? It was too unbelievable. The boardroom was silent for a full minute. Ahem. Ahem. President Pierce, I apologize. It was me, old Aston, who failed to recognize your greatness. I was out of line. Please, give me a chance to make amends. I will handle the Starlight Studios matter with the utmost care. In his past life, Jax remembered clearly. Duncan Aston had a lot of dirty dealings with Starlight Studios, and behind it all was not just Duncan, but Cornelius Astor himself, pulling the strings from the shadows. Cornelius had seemed powerless, but in the months when Lily's health declined, he had been using his own forces to aggressively seize control of the Astor Empire. The more Lily lost the will to manage the group, the more rampant he became. The entertainment industry was a perfect place for money laundering and rapid wealth accumulation. Jax now knew that if he really wanted to play, there was no point in toying with these old fools in the boardroom. The real fun was in luring out the hidden final boss. And how do you plan to handle it, Mr. Aston? Jax asked, his voice deceptively mild. Will we be needing Mr. Cornelius Astor to pay a visit to the office himself? Duncan's vision went black. He nearly wet himself. Duncan Aston never imagined Jax could have unraveled the inner workings of Starlight Studios. And now, seeing that even the great Orion Sky was wary of him, it was clear Jax held something far more damning than just his file. Something that might even involve the continent. In an instant, all of Duncan's schemes evaporated. He had to find a way to get on Jax's good side. It was his only way out. President Pierce, I'll tell you. Back at Moonshadow Estate, after seeing Isabel and Sam off, Lily immediately texted Jax the good news. She told him that after he finished at the office, she needed to take him to the Astor estate. But for now, she was feeling a surge of energy. Dressed in a designer beige pantsuit, she was a blend of gentle elegance and sharp power. It's time for some things to move forward, she murmured. At the very least, before her body failed completely, she wanted to settle all of the Astor family's affairs. Young miss, are you planning to go to the estate alone? Nathan asked, frowning. I received word that the Pierce patriarch has been there recently, staying in secret. He's been seen moving freely, even going to the storeroom for medicine. It seems Mr. Cornelius has allowed it. Nathan had been with Lily long enough to know the treacherous nature of the Astor dynasty, the backstabbing between family members. But compared to the young miss, who had been steeped in it her entire life, he was still a novice. The old man can't hold back any longer, Lily said, her tone deep and inscrutable, as if she already had a complete grasp of everything happening at the estate. His health is failing. Sooner or later, he was bound to meet with the Pierce patriarch again. Her own illness wouldn't last much longer. According to Jax's past life dream, the version of her who didn't have him would have given up on her absolute control of the group, overlooking a person she had never touched. But ever since Jax had told her about his past life, she had questioned him on the smallest details. For instance, in her later stages, what was Cornelius Astor's condition? The news she got was that Cornelius was in excellent health. That was it, just like what happened with her aunt, Celeste Astor, over a decade ago. A cold dread settled in Lily's heart. She realized that in that timeline, if she was sick, the other female relatives of the main branch were few and far between. Isabel, she was one of them. Although she seemed to be part of a branch family, clinging to the Astor name for its benefits, Isabel's true parentage was a secret known to very few. She was the child her mother, Susanna Astor, had secretly hidden for her aunt, Celeste. Her mother would never have revealed this, but her uncle, Warren Sinclair, had a big mouth. He played the part of Lily's rival in public, but in private, they were co-conspirators. He had leaked every secret he could to his beloved niece, without Susanna's knowledge. He felt no guilt. An uncle sharing secrets with his niece. Who could say anything? Lily had never understood why her mother had hidden this from her. Not until now, when everything was becoming increasingly strange. If the past life version of herself hadn't met her end at the Astor estate, then someone else in the family had. And that person was very likely Isabel. Isabel was about to get married. In her current identity, she could still enjoy the glory and power of the Astor name, and Lily had no intention of officially bringing her back into the main family. It was enough for her to live well as a member of a branch family. The night Jax confessed everything, Lily had asked him many questions. Among them was one crucial one. After my health declined, did Isabel still come to see me every Tuesday? This was vital. Isabel and Lily were close. Despite her initial dislike for Jax, Isabel had a habit of visiting Moonshadow Estate every Tuesday. As Lily's condition worsened, her visits became more frequent, sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. But after Lily had supposedly gone abroad for treatment in that timeline, Isabel had stopped coming. That in itself was normal. The patient wasn't there, so why would she visit? It wouldn't have raised any suspicion. No, Jax had said after a long, difficult pause, trying to remember. I thought it was strange at the time. I happened to see a news report. Isabel was in an accident on set. A wire harness failed, and she fell. It said she was hospitalized, but celebrity schedules and hospitals are kept secret, and the news was vague. He thought for another moment, then added, later, I think she died. The death of a famous actress would normally be huge news, but she was an Astor. The family could easily keep it quiet. Jax only remembered because he'd seen her so often at Moonshadow Estate. The expression on Lily's face when she heard this was unreadable, but Jax felt the temperature in the room plummet. A bone-deep chill filled the air. I see, Lily had said softly. This is not a good dream at all. And bad dreams were meant to be erased and rewritten. If that was the case, it meant Cornelius's predatory gaze had shifted from her to Isabel. Lily could almost picture it. Even in her previous life, in her weakest moments, no one in the Astor family would have dared make a move before she drew her last breath. As long as Lily Astor was still breathing, no one dared to truly harbor any wicked thoughts. And if they did, they had to swallow them down and wait for her to die. But Isabel was different. Once those old monsters in the family discovered her true identity, the daughter of Celeste Astor, they'd realize that everything Isabel had was a gift from the Astors. Controlling her would be child's play. After all, Lily couldn't be by her side every moment of every day, and no one could watch over a grown adult 24/7. But who had leaked the secret? Who had revealed to Cornelius that Isabel was Aunt Celeste's daughter? That was a loose end Lily intended to tie up. There was no room for grit in her eyes. More importantly, Lily knew that no matter who leaked the information, the root of the problem was the man who received it. If she eliminated the source of the threat, the danger to Isabel would vanish. After a moment of contemplation, Lily's mind was made up. She had to do something before her body weakened any further. Lily Astor was not a woman who sat around waiting to die. Back to the estate, she commanded. Nathan immediately had the car prepared, but seeing the matriarch return alone like this, it wasn't that he feared she would be at a disadvantage. He was afraid she would go on a rampage and be unable to stop. And if that happened, wouldn't he be? A chill ran down Nathan's spine. The black Rolls-Royce, like an elegant specter, glided into the Astor estate. The grounds had been meticulously repaired after the last bombardment. The lotus pond was pristine, and the pavilions and courtyards had been restored to their former glory, a perfect one-to-one recreation. Lily walked along the familiar classical verandas, the click-clack of her heels echoing like a death knell. Where's the old man? Lily no longer called him grandfather. The man who had once sat at the head of the Astor dynasty was now withered, his power dwindling under Lily's relentless assault. Since the day of the memorial Lily had held for her sister, Celeste, Cornelius had become increasingly reclusive. To the rest of the family, his presence had faded. A single glance was all Lily needed to know everything the old man had been up to. He had been treading carefully. A pity. This time, she had no intention of getting tangled in the Astor family's vortex any longer. Ma'am, Mr. Astor is in the study with Mr. Pierce. Perhaps you should. Lily's head snapped up, her dark eyes sweeping over the clueless subordinate. A faint, contemptuous smile touched her red lips. This family answers to me. Her voice was low and final. "Not to that shameless old fossil." With that, she strode toward the study. No one in the Astor family dared to block her path, but her utterly treasonous words still made several staff members gasp. Rumor had it that on the night of her coming-of-age ceremony, Lily had committed an act of violence that drove her own mother insane and caused her father to vanish. The only reason Cornelius was still around was because Lily deemed him no threat. As for her brothers, besides Leo, the other had long since met a brutal end. If she continued her reign of terror against the family, wouldn't her reputation be utterly ruined? They would call her unfilial, a woman with no family, a solitary, cursed star. Of course, those present only dared to think such things. No one would ever say them aloud. Inside the study, "Theodore, my friend, I have you to thank for showing this old dog a new path to life. To be honest, my body is failing me, and I do not like the feeling one bit. But Lilith," Cornelius spat, his voice filled with venom. "She's a selfish, venomous snake of a woman who knows nothing of sacrifice or filial piety. I can't expect her to offer up anything for her own grandfather." Cornelius sat in the seat of honor, having already made his intentions clear to Theodore Pierce. Scheming against Lily was simply too risky. He had always been searching for a backup plan. Unfortunately, the only legitimate Astor bloodline left was Lily herself. His previous support for the farcical contractual marriage was merely a ploy to get a man into her bed so she could produce a new heir. Otherwise, someone of Jax Pierce's lowly status would never have been worthy of marrying into the Astor dynasty. Of course, there had been some private discussions between him and Theodore. Jax was an outcast in his own family, a non-entity. Most importantly, Theodore had assured him that Jax could definitely get Lily pregnant. For years, Cornelius had relied on Theodore for certain unsavory medical assistance, things best kept in the shadows. The two had been partners in crime for a long time. While Theodore may have coveted the Astor family's prestige, he hadn't reacted when his favored grandson, Caleb, was replaced. It seemed he genuinely had high hopes for Jax and Lily. "Patience, Cornelius," Theodore said from a lower seat. He looked surprisingly robust, his old, dark eyes glinting with an unnerving light. "I've already told you, once we find Miss Isabel Croft, I can provide you with some herbs to cultivate her for a time. It's not entirely impossible." Just then, the click-clack-click of high heels echoed from outside the door. Even footsteps could send a message. And Lily Astor's stride always carried a sense of violent beauty, an elegant rhythm laced with bloody slaughter. She appeared in a stunning gown, pushing the study door open with unhurried grace and striding into the room as if she owned it. Well, what are you two old-timers chatting about?" The moment Lily appeared, the air in the room seemed to freeze. Both Cornelius and Theodore felt their jaws tighten involuntarily. Lily, my dear, what brings you home today? You should have let your grandfather know. I would have had the staff prepare your favorite truffle and prosciutto-wrapped scallops." Lily's eyelids lifted slightly, the profound mockery in her gaze making both men's hearts pound. A strange, unsettling laugh escaped her lips. Truffle and prosciutto-wrapped scallops? That was Celeste's favorite dish. Her mother, Susanna, was a high-society woman who knew how to cook very few things. That dish was the one she had perfected. For Lily and her sister, it was the only thing that tasted like their mother. But the men of the Astor family had only ever known how to bleed their wives and daughters dry. What could they possibly understand of their emotions, their inner worlds? "You're getting senile, Cornelius. You've even forgotten that was Celeste's favorite," she said, her voice dripping with poison. "Or, are you missing my dear sister as much as I am? Since you miss her so much, why don't I send you to see her?" She took a step closer. When she was sent back from the continent, she was nothing but a pile of ashes. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So pitiful, so lonely. It must be so boring with no one to keep her company. Lily advanced step by step. She looked so gentle, so elegant. If one were to ignore the murderous glint in her eyes, she could easily be mistaken for a debutante. "Lilith, what madness are you planning now? Have you forgotten? The launch of our European holdings requires my seal. As long as I refuse to provide it." Cornelius brandished his final trump card, the one thing he believed gave him leverage over her. In his mind, the Astor family's legacy European holdings held an irresistible allure for anyone. It was why Lily had spared him. "Sure, relax." Lily's voice was a silken thread of menace. "I'm not interested in hearing it anymore. It's time for you to be on your way." What did a dying woman care for European holdings? The only reason she'd left him alive was because she'd been afraid that the talk of her being a family killer would scare off Jax, whom she'd already set her sights on. She couldn't have cared less about anything else. But now that he had become a direct threat, there was no reason to keep him around. To Lily, the old guard of the Astor family were nothing more than disgusting maggots. Crushing them would soil her hands, but letting them live would soil her eyes. Better to just wipe them clean. She raised a hand, a small, exquisitely modified dagger dancing between her fingers. Now don't scream, she cooed. If you get my dress dirty, I'll feed you to the dogs. Her tone was still light, her madness possessing a terrifying stability. Nathan trembled beside her. When a matriarch got serious, it was best for everyone to shut up. Otherwise, you could easily become the next target. With that thought, Nathan glanced at Theodore Pierce, who was also shaking but was smart enough to try to shrink into the background. In the next instant, Nathan shoved the old man, sending him sprawling to the floor. Oof! Theodore let out an involuntary cry as he hit the ground. A split second later, he felt a dark, venomous gaze land on him with something akin to excitement. Theodore froze. What the hell? Distracted for a moment by the sound from Theodore Pierce, Lily didn't even pause. The dagger plunged straight into Cornelius's palm. The pain was immediate and absolute. At that moment, Cornelius Astor, the patriarch who had lived a life of pampered luxury, felt the crushing weight of the one who had truly replaced him. The entire Astor household, even his personal butler who had served him for decades and was hiding somewhere in the study, didn't have the courage to show his face. They were smart enough to calculate the odds, get killed instantly by Lily, or face the old man's wrath later. It was an easy choice. Cornelius never imagined Lily would actually attack him. The shock was so profound it almost overshadowed the searing pain in his hand. But a second later, agony washed over him. Oh, Lilith, are you insane? I'm your grandfather. Cornelius was old and had always been meticulous about his health. Even during Lily's purge of the family 2 years ago, he had been spared. He was an old man accustomed to being treated like a priceless vase. In all his years, he had never known such suffering. Noisy. Lily's brow furrowed. She felt nothing for this old man. The bonds of blood had withered and died long ago, back when she was thrown into that organization, forced to claw her way up just to survive. As a child, she had dreamed of her family, her father or grandfather, coming to find her. But after countless days of starvation, clarity had set in. She had seen how normal people lived. They might not dote on their children, but they would never abandon them, let alone throw them into a pit of vipers. It took a long time for the young Lily to understand. She had never been loved. So, what right did this old thing have to think she still cared about so-called family ties? Lilith, do you really want to bear the crime of being a monstrous, unfilial family killer? He shrieked. You stay away from me. Someone, anyone, seize this madwoman. I'm a true master of this house. Get this monster who recognizes no kin. Get her. Cornelius was truly terrified. The pain from his hand shot through his entire body. An old man, already frail, couldn't endure such torment. But Lily gave him no quarter. With a flick of her wrist, she struck again. This time, the blade sliced cleanly through the tendons in his other wrist. It was fast, precise, and ruthless. A bloodthirsty smile played on her lips as she paced nonchalantly. She didn't even say a word, just cast a lazy glance at him. She knew the old man was devious and had never truly accepted a woman taking over the Astor dynasty. That was why, even after she had seized total control of the corporation, a few of the old board members, while appearing to play it safe, still secretly held sway. It was a clear sign that someone in the family was unhappy with her rule. Previously, Lily couldn't be bothered with such petty schemes. In the dream Jax had told her about, she had likely been just as dismissive. But now, she had specifically chosen a time when the board members were busy dealing with Jax and Orion Sky, too distracted to care about Cornelius's fate. Of course, the real reason Lily dared to storm the estate so brazenly was that she had already prepared for it. The entire estate was under the control of her people. So what if she came alone? She could still eliminate this old filth. The blade of her dagger grazed his neck. Suddenly, a figure moved, pulling Cornelius back and shielding him. Mr. Astor, are you all right? The newcomer was the most formidable of Cornelius's personal bodyguards, a loyal enforcer he had spent a fortune to acquire and keep by his side. I'm fine. Cornelius's eyes were bloodshot, his old face as mottled as tree bark. He was terrified. The pain in his hands made him want to scream endlessly. She was trying to cripple him. Lily knew perfectly well that his hands are what he treasured most. For years, Cornelius had been obsessed with his appearance. The aging process, while slower for him than for his peers, still displeased him. He was pathologically pursuing youth, and he had found a way to slow his decline. Daily immersions in baths infused with precious herbs grown with the blood of virgins. While he couldn't spend all day in a tub, he could soak his hands for hours. Over time, his hands had become the youngest, most supple part of his body. Even Leo often remarked that his grandfather's hands looked like those of a man in his 20s. Such praise brought Cornelius unparalleled satisfaction. To him, as long as he could retain a youthful body, the title of Astor family patriarch would always be his. And Lily, of course, knew exactly what he cared about most. Power and money. He'd had them his whole life. Only youth was something he'd possessed but could no longer hold on to. Lily was destroying the very thing he prided himself on, the thing he cherished above all else. When it came to punishment, Lily was an expert. Different people required different methods. Cornelius was obsessed with youth, so she would make him watch himself decay. The youngest, most precious part of his body, pierced and mangled by her own hand. Jagger, cripple his other hand, Lily said, raising an eyebrow. The moment she spoke the bodyguard's name, Cornelius's face went white with shock. He had been plotting, coveting Lily's blood, even poisoning her when she was a child with an incurable toxin. But Lily had seemed utterly indifferent. She must have known about his disgusting plans for years, since Jagger had been by his side for so long. Why hadn't she done anything? Why now? Why had she suddenly decided to eliminate one of her few remaining relatives? No, don't, Cornelius cried out, his composure shattering. Lily, why? Why don't you care? Why don't you even ask me why I want your blood? He was broken. His pride wasn't just in his pursuit of youth, but in his lifelong belief in his own cunning, his ruthless understanding of human evil. This didn't make sense. Lily shouldn't have cared about his petty schemes. Perhaps, she said softly, the old me was never afraid of dying. Her gaze softened, a flicker of something new in her eyes. But now, I have someone to protect, someone to love. Jax wants me to live, so I will do my best to try. As his wife, I want to grant his wish. And give him an answer. Lily's words seemed directed at Cornelius, but they were really for herself. Of course, a madwoman like her didn't care about killing her own family. In her eyes, they were all beasts, and it was better to kill them all than let one escape. She had tolerated Cornelius for a while to avoid scaring Jax, but she had always seen him as nothing more than an animal in a pen, to be slaughtered whenever she pleased. She wasn't bothered by how disgusting or ruthless they were, because none of them could ever be more ruthless than her. But for them to plot something so vile right under her nose, that required her personal attention. You want to stay young forever? You're over 90, you old fossil. Don't you find it perverse, living so long while looking at your own disgusting reflection? Lily's mocking gaze enveloped him, her eyes like invisible, barbed sickles, capable of flaying a man with a single look. Hearing the word perverse from Lily's lips was the height of irony. Her own perverse methods were enough to make anyone despair. Nathan, Lily's tone shifted, peel the skin off this old dog. Cornelius began to tremble violently. Since you don't like your wrinkled hide, why don't I have Nathan peel it off for you, iron it smooth, and then put it back on? Her voice was thin and merciless. Look at me, old man, fulfilling your wishes. I'm such a filial granddaughter. There was no one in this world who could stop her madness, so why shouldn't she be as reckless as she pleased? Besides, she had never played such an interesting game before. Nathan nodded. He was adept at these small acts of evil, following in the matriarch's wake. He quickly presented her favorite weapon, a gleaming scythe. He bowed his head respectfully. Ma'am, will you be doing the honors? Or shall I? His question was a show of deference. It all depended on the matriarch's mood. Her methods were far crueler than his. She wouldn't even knock the person out. She would just peel them alive. Lily. Lily, calm down. Grandfather doesn't want to be young anymore. My skin can stay wrinkled, it's fine. You don't have to trouble yourself with ironing it. This was no joke. This was human flesh, not some animal hide that needed pressing. He knew Lily's methods all too well. There was no craziest, only crazier. Theodore, get your grandson. Lily only listens to that boy. Quick, have him come save us. Just moments ago, Cornelius had looked down on Jax, viewing him as a mere pawn. Now, he was scrambling and begging for Jax to rescue him. Theodore Pierce flinched as his name was called, a jolt like lightning striking his spine. He looked up, his body trembling, and sure enough, he met Lily's eyes so devoid of emotion they held only a pure, bloody madness, like a predator that had just spotted new prey. Theodore's legs went weak. He knew Cornelius was right. Without a second thought, he fumbled for his phone and dialed Jax's number. A moment later, A look of disbelief and despair washed over his face. No, no, how is this possible? That boy, Jax, he respects me more than anyone. How could he block my number? I'm his grandfather. Has he forgotten all the years I was good to him? Theodore was frantic. Not being able to reach Jax felt like the sky was falling. But it didn't make sense. In Jax's eyes, he was the good, beloved grandfather. He was just too frail to protect him personally, which was why Jax had suffered some minor slights in the Pierce family. How could the boy cast aside their bond? He tried again, desperately, but was met with the same busy signal of a blocked number. Cornelius froze. His deals with Theodore had always been secretive. This wasn't the first time he'd done something like this, but Lily had been his most difficult challenge yet. When she went mad, who wouldn't be afraid? A young woman who had been sent to that organization as a child, who knew what kind of torture she had endured to become so mentally unhinged. That was why Cornelius had preferred to find other solutions rather than confronting her directly. The Astor dynasty was vast and needed a steady supply of heirs. But now, there was no suitable material left among the younger generation for him to cultivate. Lily paid no mind to Theodore's roaring. This skin-peeling and ironing business had to be done in order. Theodore would have to wait his turn. She picked up the small scythe, the sound of her heels on the floor sending shivers down their spines. The two old men tried to flee, but since Lily was standing here, ready to commit this monstrous act, the entire estate was undoubtedly under her control. Cornelius had always assumed Lily was oblivious to his filthy little secrets, thinking she was too indifferent to her own fate to care about his schemes. But now that they had set their sights on Isabel, the wife of Jax's best friend, she was going to settle the score. It didn't matter if she was mistaken. Why had a madwoman ever played by the rules? Save your energy. Don't run, she purred. If you damage the skin, it won't iron out nicely. Lily advanced, the blood-red scythe in her hand. The two old men were crumpled on the floor, utterly defenseless. She found the thought of even touching them, of being stained by their blood, to be disgusting. The scythe's tip touched Cornelius's neck, the sharp blade poised to break the skin. It was a weapon that could slice through steel as if it were mud. Flesh would offer no resistance. Lily stopped. At that critical hair-trigger moment, a calm male voice, tinged with breathlessness, broke the spell. Lily turned, her body stiffening. The person who had arrived was none other than Jax, the man she had deliberately sent away. He must have finished his meeting and come straight to the estate. But who had he come for? A flicker of guilt crossed Lily's eyes, quickly replaced by a look of wide-eyed innocence. Jax, what are you doing here? What a coincidence. Your grandfather is visiting our family today, too. I was just... She trailed off. There was no excuse for the scene he had just walked in on, for the image of her, poised for brutal, bloody slaughter. Seeing Jax, the two old men nearly burst into tears of relief. There, their savior had finally arrived. Theodore scrambled to his feet, waving at Jax, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of elderly dignity. But his trembling, weak legs betrayed him. Lily, no need to pretend. Then, in a shocking twist, Jax's demeanor changed entirely. A smile bloomed on his handsome face, a smile laced with a hidden madness that sent a chill down everyone's spine. But getting your hands dirty with Mr. Astor, it's beneath you. Why don't you hand him over to me? You can stand by and direct. The two old men shuddered. This was the boy they thought they could control, the pawn they had chosen to impregnate Lily? Something is very, very wrong. Lily hadn't expected Jax to show up. Her gloomy eyes shot a look at Nathan, who wished the floor would swallow him whole. When her gaze returned to Jax, her expression softened into a gentle smile. Jax, I wouldn't want you to dirty your hands. It would make me uncomfortable. I want you to be pristine. My Jax is perfect in every way. Lily glided toward him, her stiletto heels clicking on the floor, the magnificent fabric of her dress swirling around her. She reached out and smoothed the collar of his shirt. The gesture was tender, but coming from a woman of her regal, untouchable stature, it was enough to make one's heart seize. But Jax felt no fear. He took her hand, the one stained with a few drops of blood. A hand so beautiful should never be soiled. He had been too late. He should have become the sharpest blade in her hand long ago, so she wouldn't have to face everything alone. Lily, that's what I should be saying to you. I want to protect you, he said, his voice low. I want your hands to be clean. My wife. I was too late, and I let you bear this for too long. He looked down at her hand. It was slender and long, but the fine calluses on her fingertips betrayed the hardships of her past. Others only saw them and felt fear, but Jax felt only a deep, aching tenderness. Jax, what is the meaning of this? I am your grandfather. Have you forgotten how I've treated you all these years? I was the one who protected you in the Pierce family, the one who cared for you. Have you no sense of filial piety? Theodore Pierce couldn't believe it. Jax had been standing there for minutes and had completely ignored him, his entire being focused on that dying she-devil, that monster. He had hoped this was just a tactic, a way for Jax to de-escalate. But then he saw the look in his grandson's eyes, not a flicker of recognition, only cold indifference. In that instant, he felt a killing intent. Could Jax have discovered the truth? Is he going to turn on me? He spoke, trying to awaken some flicker of loyalty. He had just witnessed Lily's cold, merciless slaughter of her own grandfather. At this point, falling into her hands or Jax's seemed to make no difference. TCH, filial piety? A contemptuous smirk touched Jax's lips. He stood tall, his gaze on Theodore as dark and thick as the night, a beast lurking in his chest, ready to pounce. Did you ever truly protect me, old man? I don't seem to recall. When the whole family forced me to be a blood bag for Caleb, where were you? Did you really think hiding away and pretending to be sick could cover up the fact that you're just as rotten and biased as the rest of them? Besides, Jax's voice turned to ice. I have completely severed ties with the Pierce family. That, of course, includes you, you old fossil. Jax no longer held any illusions about family. He had already paid the price for his desperate craving for their affection. Now, he didn't need their so-called concern, which was nothing more than parasitic harm. The look he gave Theodore was that of a stranger, stripped of the dependence and trust the old man had once prided himself on. He thought he could manipulate the boy indefinitely, that a child starved for love would blossom with the smallest ray of sunshine. Lily, my love, stay back, Jax said softly. Leave the rest to me. He took the scythe from her hand. In that moment, he was the one who had become the demon from hell. Cornelius and Theodore were stunned. Not even in their worst nightmares had they imagined that Jax was the one who had been most deeply infected by Lily's madness. And he showed no mercy. He moved toward Theodore, closing in step by step. That day, the Astor estate became a living hell, filled with agonized screams. Lily watched in silence. She saw in Jax's movements a familiar shadow. As he remembered something, it was proof that in the face of absolute destructive power, all schemes and plots are useless. It was true 2 years ago when the Astor family nearly fell, and it was true now. The two old men did not die, but they were flayed and broken, no longer resembling human beings. They were bound in chains and thrown into the Astor family dungeon. Cornelius was no stranger to this place. In his youth, he had used it to torture anyone who defied him, including his own son. He'd had 3 sons. Ronan, the third, was nearly identical to him in temperament. It was how he'd survived to inherit the family title. As for Celeste, she wasn't Ronan's full sister, but an illegitimate child. When she was dragged like a sacrificial lamb to the laboratory Cornelius had built for himself, Ronan had just stood by and watched, his eyes gleaming with a thirst for knowledge. Perhaps, in that moment, the same monstrous idea had taken root in his own mind. All right, old man. Talk. Lily's voice echoed in the damp, dark chamber. She was still in her magnificent gown, a vision of cold, noble beauty who seemed perfectly at home in the macabre surroundings. She was beautiful, yes, but also sinister, mysterious, and terrifying. You and this other fossil were plotting something. What did you want with Isabel? Compared to Jax, the two old men's fear of Lily was almost primal. They had thought that what worked once would work again. The fatal toxin flowing through Lily's veins made her the optimal tonic to extend their own lives and youth. But the madwoman was simply too difficult to handle. And now she had another psycho by her side, standing together, who would dare to cross them. Cornelius felt deeply wronged. Even if he was going to die, he wouldn't go quietly. He hadn't even dared to try his schemes on Lily again. It was a testament to how powerful she had become, a power forged from endless suffering. Only Jax could feel her pain. Lilith, I am your grandfather, he pleaded. Let me go. I'm begging you. Lily, you were disloyal enough to go after your own father. Are you really going to become a monster who would kill her own grandfather? Lily, aren't you afraid the world will curse you, call you an inhuman, black-hearted psycho, a monster? Cornelius was making his last stand. He couldn't understand why Lily had suddenly stormed the estate and attacked him without mercy. Did she truly not want to live anymore? Lily, if you let your grandfather go, I can find a way to extend your life. I promise, the curse that Astor women don't live past 25. It's man-made. I can help you solve it. He had no other bargaining chips. This was his last resort. He believed no one, not even Lily, was unafraid of death. But Lily just smiled, a lazy, indifferent curl of her lips. The dagger in her hand didn't even hesitate as it plunged cleanly into his arm. Ah! The old man screamed, a sound of pure agony. He was trapped between the desire for life and the inability to die. Filth. Utter filth. Lily didn't believe a word he said. If she wanted to live, she would find a way herself. His words were a tacit admission. All the suffering of the Astor women had come from him. She didn't press him further. Instead, a dark, venomous smile spread across her face. TSK. My flesh-eating ants are hungry. The meat on this old thing is tough, but it should be enough to satisfy their appetites. Anyone would break. Right now, Cornelius Astor was watching in horror as these disgusting, terrifying ants crawled all over his wounds. The colony Lily kept in the dungeon was massive. She only had to place a prisoner, tortured beyond recognition, within their reach, and in 2 or 3 days, they would be reduced to a clean-picked skeleton. For Lily, these brutal methods were something she had grown accustomed to in the organization. But her so-called family, the ones who had sent her to that hellhole, had probably never witnessed such a grand and cruel spectacle firsthand. She had endured so much pain over the years. So little of it had ever registered with them, had ever touched their hearts. She had long since grown used to it. She didn't expect a single ounce of their pathetically thin blood ties. What she wanted was for them to experience, just for a moment, what she had gone through. At its core, empathy was impossible. But pain and fear, those were feelings that could be shared quite effectively. Cornelius had enjoyed a lifetime of luxury, even savoring a period of renewed youth. He had rarely suffered. Now, it felt as if all the hardship of a lifetime was crashing down on him at once. No matter how much he howled, Lily just watched with cold, detached eyes. He had tried to bait her, thinking the secret of her impending death would keep him alive forever. He never imagined she didn't care. How could you hold anything over a woman who was indifferent to her own life? Cornelius could only spiral into madness under the shadow of his own body being consumed. Shuh, don't disturb my little darlings while they're eating, Lily purred. Look, aren't they clever? The way they break down the flesh, piece by piece. Doesn't it remind you of the claws you were about to sink into Isabel? I gave you a chance, old man. But you insisted on dying. She looked down, her long lashes casting a shadow over her eyes, concealing the madness and bloodlust that threatened to spill out. Following her words, Cornelius looked at the ants crawling over him. He could feel them moving across his skin, through his clothes, the gnawing pain in a dozen different places. He felt like he was going insane. Lilith, you're a demon. Someone will deal with you. Do you really think you can hold onto the position of family head without me? How many people in this family are hoping you live? They only obey you now because they know you won't make it past 25. Everyone is just waiting for you to die. Cornelius screamed curses, his body thrashing in terror. He looked up at Lily and Jax, at the perfectly coordinated couple, and knew he was a trapped animal. He wouldn't let them have it easy. To put it nicely, Jax was the husband Lily protected, the one for whom she was building a commercial empire, the one for whom she was willing to hand over the entire Astor dynasty. He had even heard that within the corporation, Lily was planning to use the power of the Sky family from the continent to pave the way for Jax. She was insane. She was handing over the Astor family's century-old foundation to an outsider. She knew she didn't have much time left, so she was giving everything she had fought for, everything she controlled, to Jax. Wasn't this the ultimate betrayal? Even if the Astor family was to fall, it shouldn't be given away like this. He would not allow it. The family elders were no fools. Even in death, he would not let Jax so easily take what Lily was giving him. To put it crudely, Jax was just a plaything, a pretty boy that Lily happened to find amusing enough to spoil. Is that so? Lily's voice was utterly detached. That's not something a dead man needs to worry about. She continued to watch him with a cold gaze as he descended toward death. But for a man like him, a quick death was a mercy. Lily turned away from Cornelius. She knew the ants would do their work, subjecting him to exquisite torture, not a swift end. As for Theodore, she no longer had the desire to deal with him personally. What little time she had left, she wanted to spend with the person she loved. Jax, I'm tired. Her voice was flat, mechanical, almost devoid of emotion. This place is yours to handle now. I don't want to manage the Astor family's affairs anymore. He reached too far, and he deserved to die. As for the agents this old fossil planted within the company, don't worry, not a single one of them will be left alive. Wasn't this what she had always wanted, what she had craved with every fiber of her being? For Jax to love her, to be by her side? Now that she had it, she should have no regrets. But Jax, the person closest to her, was the first to feel the powerful wave of self-loathing emanating from her. No, she shouldn't be like this. This isn't the ending Lily deserves. If his own fate could be rewritten, then so could Lily's. A woman as good as her, this couldn't be her destiny. Jax Pierce, didn't believe in fate. He only believed in himself, in his ability to rewrite everything. Lily, if you're not feeling well, you can leave everything here to me, I promise. But if you're having other thoughts, like not cherishing your life, not wanting to spend it with me, his voice hardened. Then I will prove to you right now that all the glory and achievements this world has to offer are nothing compared to a single you. My love. Jax stood tall and straight. The once immature young man who had resisted her, hated her, wished her dead, had now become someone who could stand tall for her, shelter her from the wind and rain. Lily was, in truth, a little incredulous. A flicker of self-abandonment had just crossed her mind. She had always viewed life with a certain detachment. The lack of warmth from her home as a child had forced her to build high walls around her heart. In this life, not even her own parents could earn her trust. But Jax was different. With him, she always found an indescribable sense of security, and she believed his future would be extraordinary. But Jax, how much longer can I be with you? Sensing the despair in her heart, Jax turned the dagger he'd been holding for Theodore and pointed it at his own chest. Lily's eyes widened in horror. She trusted his love for her. She truly did. But in a moment like this, a moment of life and death, all she felt was shock and terror. Jax, what are you doing? Without a thought, she lashed out with her blood-red whip, intending to knock the dagger from his hand. But Jax was ready. He didn't flinch, didn't dodge. His hand moved faster than her whip. He was going to show her, with his own fearless devotion, that they were one. Their love made them inseparable. He did not fear even death. Lily, he can die 1,000 times, and it wouldn't compare to you not once. Keep him alive. I'll handle him. I will pry the secrets from his mouth. Don't be impulsive, please. Even if no one in this world wants you, even if you've lost the will to live, you still have me. I am you. I won't let you die, and I don't want you to die. The dagger pierced flesh. The sound was a sickening squelch that made Lily's heart leap into her throat. She yanked her whip back, desperate not to hurt him, but she was too fast. The only way to stop it was to catch it with her bare hand. The barbs dug in her palm, and blood instantly welled up. But to Lily, a pain like this was just an old, familiar ache. Her only concern now was Jax. Her mind went blank. All she could hear was Jax's voice, almost a prayer. Lily, don't be impulsive, please. Lily, I need you to live. Lily's childhood had been a nightmare, but that didn't matter. Her lover would raise her all over again. Even if they were both covered in thorns, they would still rush to embrace each other without a second thought. Jax. As if waking from a trance, Lily suddenly came back to herself. She clutched her head, a wave of pain washing over her. She was having an episode, wasn't she? That familiar sense of world-weariness and self-hatred. She knew it all too well. Every time it happened, she would have to fight it with a self-control so brutal it tore her apart, leaving her covered in wounds just to get through it. But this time, she had hurt the man she loved, had hurt herself, and in that pain, she found a sudden clarity. Her salvation had come. It was, Jax, don't be afraid, I'm fine. Jax's voice was steady, despite the pain. It's just a scratch. I know what I'm doing. Lily, let's go home first, okay? He watched as her emotions finally calmed. His greatest fear was that she would slip back into that extreme state. He knew it was all caused by her illness. If she were healthy, her mind would never be so twisted. Okay, Lily nodded, her heart aching for the wound on his chest. In that moment, it felt as if they had truly become one. When she suffered, he suffered with her. But Lily hated it. She loved seeing him smile, seeing him carefree, seeing him rely on her with reckless abandon. She would rather bear any pain alone than watch him walk the same path she had, shouldering the same immense burdens. Home, to our home. Lily seemed to be muttering to herself, or perhaps telling Jax that they finally had a home. Jax patiently guided her emotions, but behind his calm facade, his eyes grew colder, more venomous. The two old men who had caused Lily this pain would certainly not be allowed to die so easily. Oh, he would have to find some very interesting games for them to play. The wedding preparations for Isabel and Sam were in full swing, and the date was fast approaching. Jax was lying on the massive bed in Moonshadow Estate as a team of medical professionals changed his dressing. In truth, the wound he'd given himself was not as light as he claimed. He was made of flesh and blood. Any stab wound was serious. But Jax was stubborn. Even when a nurse's touch was a bit too rough, causing him to grunt in pain, he bit his lip, determined not to let Lily see his weakness. He didn't want her to feel guilty or worried. In his mind, the matriarch belonged on a pedestal to be pursued and adored by him. Guilt was an emotion she should never have to feel. Jax, I made you some stew. Lily's voice was soft. Here, drink it. You need to rest and recover. You can leave the wedding details for Isabel and Sam to the staff. You don't need to exhaust yourself. She gently took the tablet from his hands, a hint of displeasure in her eyes. To her, Jax's health was more important than anything. Jax looked up, surprised, and his eyes instantly bloomed with adoration. The matriarch made this herself? Did she even know how to cook? A flood of memories washed over him. The countless times he had battled her at Moonshadow Estate, deliberately making her stews with ingredients he knew she was allergic to, just to disgust her, to make her let him go. Those acts, childish but malicious, had made her suffer. Yet, even then, she had never given up on him. Thinking back, as he looked at the bowl of stew she was now offering him, a stew that had a rather indescribable aroma and a color that was difficult to name, he didn't have the heart to refuse. He opened his mouth, a look of profound gratitude on his face. "HM? What's wrong, Jax? Is it not good? This is the 33rd bowl I've made," she explained. "Mr." Sterling tasted the first 32 and said the flavor was just a little off each time. This was the one he physically couldn't taste anymore. After so many improvements, the flavor shouldn't be too unbearable, right? Lily had been consumed with concern for Jax these past few days. At night, if not for his wound, she would have been clinging to him even more tightly. As it was, she stayed quietly by his side, curled up in his arms like a soft, docile fox. The proud, psychotic matriarch, acting so gentle and obedient. Jax's heart was about to melt, but as he stared at the bowl of stew filled with love and Mr. Sterling's selfless sacrifice, his heart melted a little more. In a different way, right, Jax thought, I really can't let her in the kitchen ever again. Because he was recovering, the doctor had prescribed a nutritious diet. The stew contained not only numerous health-boosting herbs, but also luxurious ingredients like lobster and saffron. Lily had originally wanted to taste it herself, but Mr. Sterling had practically thrown himself in front of her to stop it, insisting on taking on the task of quality control himself. He had ensured the matriarch hadn't consumed a single spoonful. But where was Mr. Sterling now? Lily, where's Mr. Sterling? Jax asked, changing the subject. He said he was going to the hospital to visit a relative. Right, Jax thought. Is it possible he went to see a specialist for himself? Jax swallowed hard, his face a mask of serene gratitude as he prepared to consume the lovingly prepared stew. Just as the spoon was about to enter his mouth, there was a knock at the door. Jax, you in there? Mr. Sterling insisted I come and check on your wound. It was Sam Cole. He had become a regular at Moonshadow Estate. And more importantly, he was about to become part of the Astor family. Marrying the matriarch's niece made him one of her relatives, didn't it? He now moved through the estate with a comfortable familiarity, his head held high. Of course, Jax had already given him that confidence. This couple, they were like his second parents. If the generational gap wasn't so awkward, he would have gladly called them his godparents. I'm here. Jax was nearly in tears with relief. What a true brother, arriving in his moment of need to walk through fire with him. Their life and death bond was no joke. Come in, Lily said, putting the bowl down, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. She did not like outsiders intruding on her time with Jax. Still, Sam would soon be calling her Aunt Lily, so he was practically family. She said nothing more, just calmly set the bowl aside and tucked the blanket around Jax, covering up any exposed skin. This view was for her eyes only. No one else was allowed to look. Seeing his wife's cute, possessive gesture, Jax couldn't help but smile to himself. She's just too adorable. The contrast is incredible. Her jealous streak just made his heart pound, and his love for her surged even stronger. Sam pushed the door open and saw the scene, his smile freezing on his face. He had probably come at a bad time. Jax, my man, why are you blushing and clutching the covers like a damsel? And Aunt Lily, your hand is tucking him in, but why is it also disappearing under the blanket? No, I don't want to be a third wheel. Staying out of your play is what a good nephew should do. Ahem. Aunt Lily, Aunt, Uncle Jax. Sam found words a bit awkward. Calling Lily Aunt was fine, but Jax, this was a guy he grew up with. In one fell swoop, his buddy had shot up the family tree. You two can talk, Lily said coolly. I have some work to attend to. By the way, Sam, your uncle-in-law specifically requested that despite his injuries, he still wants to attend your wedding to Isabel. Your uncle and I are both very optimistic about your union. We wish you a happy marriage. Lily wasn't a woman of many words, but she made an exception for Sam. She understood why Jax, even while injured, was so determined to be at their wedding. Sam was his best friend, and Isabel was the only child in the younger generation of the Astor family for whom she still felt any affection. It was as if, in a parallel universe, they could watch another version of themselves find happiness. A smooth path, one they had never walked but had always yearned for. It was deeply meaningful. After all, she and Jax had never had a proper wedding. Their marriage had been forced upon him. To Jax, she had always been the one who coerced him. Even now that they were in love, they couldn't go back and change that unhappy beginning. So, witnessing the joyous union of Isabel and Sam, with Jax even personally involved in the planning, it was, in its own way, a chance for them to mend their own regrets. "Don't worry, Aunt Lily. I'll take good care of Isabel. And the baby." Sam's head dropped, a shy but unstoppable grin spreading across his face. Young men just have that kind of stamina. The inexhaustible energy of a college student, especially one who had just discovered the joys of the flesh, was a powerful thing. Sleeping next to the beautiful Isabel every night, Sam admitted he just couldn't hold back. It had only been half a month, and Isabel was already complaining about her back. This morning, she felt a bit off. Women seem to have a sixth sense for these things. She took a test, and sure enough, Sam had to share the good news with Jax immediately. "As it happened, Mr. Sterling called him, giving him the perfect excuse. For a surprise this big, he had to tell Jax in person. And, of course, for a moment that so clearly demonstrated his masculine prowess, he had to do a little bragging, right? A baby? Isabel's pregnant." Lily looked up, her eyes flashing with a mix of disbelief and a flicker of darkness. A child was good news, but the information she'd pried out of Cornelius at the estate was that the old man had been targeting Isabel's womb. A child was part of their scheme. And just like that, Isabel was pregnant. Of course, Sam had played his part, but it felt too coincidental, too wrapped up in the Astor family's web of conspiracy. Lily's gaze fell back to Jax. They never used protection either. She wondered if she could ever have a child of their own. That way, if something happened to her, Jax wouldn't feel the need to follow her. She was cruel and selfish, she knew. But the more she loved someone, the more she found herself clinging to a sliver of purity amidst the dark, struggling parts of her soul. She couldn't bear the thought of Jax leaving this world with her. She, more than anyone, couldn't bear it. And before that day came, she would clear every single obstacle from his path. "Yeah, we found out this morning," Sam explained. "We're planning to go to the hospital for a proper checkup in a bit. Isabel came with me. She's just downstairs on a work call." He shared the news without hesitation. Even though it was only half a month, not even a visible bump, Sam was confident in his abilities. He was sure she was pregnant. Isabel, for her part, was thrilled but also a little disappointed. She hadn't quite had her fill of certain marital activities, but it was fine. She would still be young after the baby was born, and Sam's whole life was ahead of him. She could savor him slowly. "Get in, Sam. You're the man. Congratulations." Jax, forgetting his injury, excitedly punched the mattress and tried to sit up. The movement pulled at his wound. "Hiss, right?" Jax became still again. "Ah, well, with the wedding so soon, we didn't expect this surprise. We already got our marriage license, and we're trying to keep the wedding planning stress off her. I was thinking, a new life in the Astor family. Might make you happy too, Aunt Lily." Sam looked expectantly at Lily, who had paused at the door. Lily was the head of the entire Astor family, and that family had been repressed and stagnant for too long. This child, a new life for him and Isabel, was also Astor blood. They both hoped the baby could bring a spark of life to the family's matriarch. Isabel especially had told him all about the complex, loving bond she shared with her aunt. The Astor family was cold-blooded. It had been a long time since a new child was born. She believed the family could be revitalized, could become something new and different under Lily's leadership. Lily felt rooted to the spot. She had never felt she possessed anything in this life. Having Jax's love was more than enough. But now, Sam was saying this child was also an Astor child, a child who would one day call her great aunt. Was this the bond of blood? Could feelings be passed down through generations? What was family? She had felt it from Mrs. Jiang, the warmth and care of a mother. And this new life, it was a strange, marvelous feeling, as if she, too, was now part of a legacy of affection. The child is a new life for the Astor family. Sam smiled. "Yes. After we're married, Isabel doesn't want to lose her connection to you, Aunt Lily. We've already discussed it. The baby will have the Astor name." Sam had no ego about his child taking his name. For his family to be connected to a dynasty like the Astors was a blessing that generations of Coles could only dream of. Put simply, Sam Cole, was just the delivery man, and he was happy to make the delivery. Jack shot Sam a surprised look, as if to say, "Nice one, kid. Where'd you learn to be so smooth?" "Good." Lily's voice was soft. "Very good. It's been a very long time since a new life was born into this family." She didn't particularly like children, but she had to admit, as someone with a terrible childhood, now that she was in power, she would never allow the new children of the family to suffer in the same darkness. She would be a very different kind of matriarch than Cornelius Astor. The news of Isabel's pregnancy still needed to be medically confirmed, but the prospect of this new life in the Astor family filled Lily with a strange and novel emotion. It was as if she were encountering a beautiful feeling she had never touched before, something she never imagined she would experience in her lifetime. A new life represented hope, the future. She had been creeping through the darkness for so long, devoid of emotion, that she had forgotten what such feelings were like. The sudden rush of sentiment, a mix of unfamiliarity and joy, was entirely new to her. It seemed that after dealing with those two old men, everything, aside from her own impending demise, was finally moving in the direction she had always longed for. Things are looking up for Lily and Jax. With his sister's birthdays past, the most pressing issue for the Pierce family had been resolved. As Jax had instructed, although Lily had taken the rare crimson knot route, Cornelius's revelations suggested her illness was far more complex. The route alone was not a cure. But so what? He would not only keep her alive, but he would make sure she lived well. He would cherish every moment they had together. The best way to honor their time was to spend it with the one he loved, without restraint. Life wasn't measured solely by time. The longer Jax spent with the matriarch, the deeper his obsession with her grew. Lily had agreed. The anticipation for this new life was a shared warmth in everyone's hearts. But she couldn't deny a pang of envy. She and Jax hadn't been taking any precautions either. She remembered how, in the past, even when she had pushed him to the brink, he would refuse to sleep with her. Backed into a corner, he would cry and beg her not to get pregnant, to use protection. He felt that a wicked woman like her was unworthy of carrying his child. Later, when love bloomed between them, those barriers disappeared. But a child, Lily still didn't dare to let herself dream of it. It felt too distant, too incredible, something she almost wanted to avoid. "Isabel is going to the hospital for a checkup," Lily announced, a rare move for her. "In that case, I'll go with her." She was setting aside work, willingly choosing to accompany family to do something else. Was this a sign that the matriarch's cold logic was slowly being eroded by emotion? The decision was certainly stunning. Both Sam and Jax were shocked. Sam was honored, while Jax was a mix of surprise and a quiet ache. Does Lily want a child, too? If so, was it because he wasn't trying hard enough? Jax looked down, frustrated with the current state of his body. He had to heal first. "That's great. Isabel is just downstairs. She'll be so happy you're going with her, Aunt Lily." The father-to-be was already over the moon. Sam had always held a deep sense of awe and respect for Lily. When he first found out his best friend had managed to win over the CEO of the Astor dynasty, his brain had short-circuited. But his respect for her had never waned. The matriarch would always be the dazzling, proud matriarch. To receive even a moment of her favor was enough to make anyone feel overwhelmed with honor. That was her power, her charm. Lily nodded slightly and left the room. Alone in the room, Sam and Jax began to talk. Sam was currently managing Jax's commercial empire, which had grown far beyond what it once was. The vast enterprise was a huge challenge for them both. But they were young, and they weren't afraid of a challenge. "Jax," Sam said, his voice low, "that other thing, are you sure you want to hide it from her? You know her temper. If she finds out..." "She hates lies," Jax agreed, a gentle wave rippling in his eyes, especially from the people closest to her. But this time is different. Lily had done so much for him over the years, and there was so little he could do to repay her. As for money, she was the last person who needed it. Everything he was, from the rebellious streak she had influenced to the defiant, even crazed, attitude he now embraced, it was all a gift from her. At the hospital, Lily and Isabel walked side by side. Both were stunningly beautiful, but their auras were starkly different. Lily wore a sharp, custom-tailored women's suit, its clean lines accentuating her powerful, cold demeanor. She was breathtakingly intimidating. Isabel, likely basking in the glow of new love, wore a dusty pink dress. Even with a mask on, the tall, slender beauty radiated a gentle warmth. That soft, enveloping aura was something Lily completely lacked. Walking together, their contrasting vibes made them seem like an odd pair. Fortunately, they were at a private maternity hospital funded by the Astor Group. It catered exclusively to the top-tier elite and clients who required absolute confidentiality. Miss Croft, if you'll follow us for your examination, a nurse said politely. Ma, matriarch asked her. You can wait in the lounge. Even without speaking, Lily's powerful presence was enough to put anyone on edge. Lily nodded in acknowledgement. She looked around at the unfamiliar decor. This was the best private maternity hospital in New York City, its design fresh and elegant, creating a warm atmosphere for welcoming new life. Everything felt so strange to her. She looked at a brochure showing the stages of a fetus developing in the womb. Such a tiny thing, growing into a complete human being inside its mother. The process was supposed to be a happy one. But her own mother, had she felt that way? Had she been so unenthusiastic, so lacking in love before Lily was born? Lily had received very little love in her life. The brief period of affection in her early childhood had been brutally slaughtered by her own parents' heartless decisions. She had agonized over it endlessly in her own mind, which was how she could now believe, with a stoic expression, that she was not a child born of love. But what about Celeste? Or Leo? Why did adults have children if they weren't willing to love them? Why, in the Astor family, was the fate of girls uncontrollable, destined for sacrifice, while the men, like Leo, could live comfortably in the shadow of her and Celeste's protection, enjoying the right to inherit everything? Pathetic. Power was the ultimate authority, and now that she held that power, she could rewrite the destinies of the next generation of Astor children and the generation after that. Lily's thoughts drifted far away. She didn't even notice Isabel had finished her tests until the results were placed right in front of her. Aunt Lily, I'm really pregnant, Isabel exclaimed. The doctor said the baby is still too small for an ultrasound, but there's definitely a little one in there. Aunt Lily, I'm so happy. Sam and I have a baby. Our love has an echo. Isabel's sweet declaration brought a rare smile to Lily's lips. She reached out and gently brushed a stray hair from Isabel's temple. Isabel, this is wonderful news. Congratulations. Her voice was soft. Congratulations on finding your happiness. Perhaps, in the prophetic nightmare Jax had told her about, Isabel's fate had been terrible. But this time, Lily would be the one to rewrite it. Isabel deserved to be happy. In the vast Astor family, so few children ever found it. You'll get pregnant too, Aunt Lily. You and Uncle Jax will have kids. Why are you looking so envious? Isabel had always been informal with Lily, never acting like a proper junior. Now, she couldn't resist teasing her aunt. Who said I was envious? Lily retorted playfully. A little baby, that's all. They're so noisy when they're born. So annoying. I don't like them at all. She was being obstinate, but anyone could hear that her words were not entirely sincere. All right. You're not envious, Isabel giggled. Anyway, Uncle Jax is still young. He has plenty of energy and technique. If you're not going to enjoy that now, when will you? Only Isabel would dare to say something so brazen to Lily. But she wasn't wrong. At the topic, a rare blush crept up Lily's serious face. Youth. It had so many benefits. Only an older sister type like her, who had also started with a college student, could truly understand that flavor. But saying it so bluntly was too much. They laughed, carefully maintaining their distance to protect the half-month-old baby in Isabel's belly. As they were about to leave, Lily suddenly felt the world tilt. A wave of nausea and pressure tightened in her chest, and she quickly pressed a hand to it. Was she having another episode? But this didn't feel like her usual attacks. A knot of fear tightened in her gut. Was her condition getting worse? A drop of sweat trickled down her temple, betraying her inner turmoil. It had been so long, so very long, since she had felt like her own body was out of her control. Her usual episodes were more of a mental torment, something she had grown accustomed to, something she could even momentarily balance. Aunt Lily, what's wrong? Isabel was terrified. She had never seen the unshakable Lily Astor look so unwell. Doctor, someone help. When Lily opened her eyes again, she sensed them before she saw them. A dozen pairs of eyes, all fixed on her. Years spent navigating the darkness had honed her senses, making her acutely sensitive to the weight of a stare. The instant her eyelids fluttered open, her hand shot out, aiming to seize the throat of the person closest to her, to make them a hostage. Her dark, profound pupils focused, and the force in her grip didn't lessen for a second. But as her vision cleared, she recognized the figure before her. Recognition sent a jolt through her, and she reflexively released her hold. A wave of concern, followed by a flicker of self-reproach, an emotion almost alien to the great Miss Astor, washed over her face. Mrs. Jiang, Mom. Lily hadn't expected to see her mother-in-law. She only remembered feeling unwell, a dizzying exhaustion from overwork and sleepless nights, and then nothing. Mrs. Jiang, for her part, was stunned by her daughter-in-law's ferocity. She had never seen that look in Lily's eyes before, the guarded, hyper-alert expression of a cornered animal. It was a look of profound sensitivity and deep-seated defensiveness. It made her wonder, with a pang of sorrow, what terrible things Lily must have endured to become like this. It only strengthened her resolve. She had to give this girl the warmth of a real home, a place where she could finally begin to heal. "Lily, it's all right, honey. I'm fine," Mrs. Jiang said, her voice soft and soothing. "I was just so worried about you. I had to be here to look after you myself." She took Lily's hand, her touch warm and steady. "You're not alone anymore, you know. You can't keep running yourself into the ground for work. The doctor said you're exhausted and malnourished. And now, you're more than a month pregnant. You have to be extra careful, get plenty of rest and nutrients." Mrs. Jiang continued, her words tumbling out in a rush of motherly concern. "I wanted to come take care of you and Jax for ages, but you two are so considerate, always worried about tiring me out. I know. But now, there's a baby on the way. I'm putting my foot down. No more neglecting your health. You both need to build up your strength. It's going to be a tough battle when the little one arrives." The information crashed over Lily, leaving her mind static. She slowly regained her bearings and took in her surroundings. She was still in the NYC Women's and Children's Hospital, but now she was in a private VIP suite. Jax was standing by the bed. So were Sam Cole and Isabel. The entire Jiang family was there, too: Hannah, Chelsea, and even the perpetually rebellious youngest, Violet. Their expressions were all different, but the concern they held for her was identical. Lily had rarely been the recipient of such open collective care. She had been strong for so long that she'd forgotten how to be cared for, forgotten that she might even need it. It felt foreign, almost uncomfortable, to be the center of this constellation of worry. She blinked, her gaze finding Jax as he walked toward her. She couldn't believe it. Was what Mrs. Jiang said true? She was pregnant too? How was that possible? It was impossible. Her body was a wreck, not just from her current illness, but from the curse that promised she wouldn't live past 25. How could she ever be a proper mother? This had to be a dream, a fever dream brought on by madness. "Lily," Jax said, his voice low and firm. "We're having a baby." He saw the fear clouding her eyes. "Don't be afraid. I won't let anyone hurt you or our child. Ever." Jax wasn't just a husband anymore. He was a father-to-be. Things he might have hesitated to do before, he would now do without a second thought. For his family, for his wife and child, he would guarantee Lily's life and purge the Astor dynasty of its last vestiges of descent. He gently pulled her into his arms, an irrepressible joy surging through him. Is it real?" Lily's voice was a whisper against his chest. "But Jax, can my body really carry a child? Will our baby be healthy? Will I be there to watch them grow up?" She leaned into him, her strength momentarily failing her, pouring all her fear into the silent press of her head against his heart. For a moment, they were just an ordinary couple, grappling with the strange, exhilarating news of a first child, their apprehension eclipsed by the burgeoning joy of becoming parents. "Don't worry about a thing," Jax murmured into her hair. "I've already started to break Cornelius. Don't pay any attention to his threats. I've got this. I've got you." This was not the uncertain college student from before. He was a father now, and he would shoulder that responsibility, forging himself into a man of unshakable strength. He turned to his family. "Mom, Lily's going to be weak for a while. I'll need you to make her some of your broths to build her strength." He looked at his sisters. "Hannah, Chelsea, if you have time, come and keep Lily company. Help her pass the time." Finally, his eyes landed on the youngest. "Violet, you're the most creative one here. Your sister-in-law has been so good to you. You better take good care of her. You hear me?" Jax was delegating tasks, but he was also weaving Lily deeper into the fabric of a complete, loving family, making her feel its reality. Lily looked up, meeting the gentle gaze of Mrs. and Mr. Jiang, seeing the genuine joy and concern on the faces of the three sisters. So this is what it feels like to have a family all standing together, hearts united. Was she really going to have a real, complete family of her own? Thank God for Jax. He had given her a true home, a place where she was no longer an island, a place where she could finally feel what it was like to lean on someone else. And was there really a baby inside her? A baby that was a month older than Izzy's. Her mind raced back through the timeline. That would mean it happened in Singapore. Back then, Jax had been relentless. He had been like a wolf, hungry and possessive, trying to devour her whole. Lily had rarely seen that side of him, but she had to admit that primal intensity had sent shivers of pleasure to the tips of her toes. Of course, this wasn't the time or place for such intimate recollections. Lily tentatively placed a hand on her stomach, a dazed look in her eyes. It took a long moment before a spark of incredulous excitement finally ignited within her. Yes, she was having a child. She was having a baby. She was going to be a mother. The days that followed were filled with a gentle, bustling warmth. With both Jax and Lily needing care, Mrs. Jiang was in her element, busy from dawn till dusk, but utterly content. She cherished the feeling of looking after her son and her new daughter. They had been separated for too many years, and even after reuniting, they never had a proper chance to just be together. This period was different. The family was a harmonious unit. Her older sisters would often visit, ostensibly to chat with Lily, though their conversations quickly turned to work. Miss Astor never did idle chit-chat. Instead, as they sought her advice, she would hold court, her strategic mind razor-sharp. As the supreme head of the Astor dynasty, her grasp of the big picture and her ability to execute were second to none. Chelsea, having recently taken over the struggling Pierce Financial, was drowning in a sea of problems. But after a casual conversation with Lily, she could return to the office and handle major issues with ruthless efficiency. The last embers of rebellion at the company were swiftly extinguished under her command, though few knew it was Lily's invisible hand guiding the whole affair, effortlessly resolving a conflict that was, to her, a storm in a teacup. Violet, though rebellious for her age, with a lively presence, always finding ways to entertain Lily and make her laugh. This warm, peaceful time was something Lily treasured. She used to think she had no need for such an ordinary, quiet life. But now she realized that the envy she'd felt looking at the Jiang family all those years ago was born from her own profound sense of loss. Perhaps fate was finally smiling on her, allowing her to become part of this big, warm family. After a week of rest, Lily's strength began to return. She had simply been exhausted, and with Mrs. Jiang's meticulous care, nutritious meals, and unwavering attention to every detail, she was recovering quickly. Mr. Jiang, a man of few words, handled the logistics. The chicken for Lily's fortifying soup was one he'd raised and butchered himself. Like countless ordinary parents, he believed nothing bought from store could compare to what he grew himself, healthy and clean. Their small yard was filled with vegetable patches, and every meal featured freshly picked greens, cooked to tender, sweet perfection. This simple, farm-fresh food did wonders for Lily's appetite. Her pregnancy was still in its early stages, and apart from that one dizzy spell, she'd had no other adverse reactions. Soon, the day of Isabel and Sam's wedding arrived. Lily was in high spirits. She wore a liquid silver gown that was the epitome of elegance and nobility. Her crimson hair cascaded over her shoulders like a waterfall, swaying around her slender waist as she moved. Even in her deliberate simplicity, she couldn't hide the confident, imperious air of a person born to power. She was beautiful, yes, but it was a beauty with a razor's edge. This time, however, something was different. The ruthless Miss Astor, who usually arrived like a storm cloud, seemed to have been softened. The sharpness in her eyes had been smoothed over, replaced by a surprising tenderness. The guests whispered amongst themselves, feeling as if they were seeing a phantom. TSK, you have to hand it to the Astors. This is just for a niece from a branch family. And look at the spectacle. I heard she's marrying some broke college student, a pretty boy with nothing to his name. Talk about a waste. The Astors have so much money, and they're throwing it away as a dowry for some nobody. And they call it true love? Please. That groom is clearly just a gold digger who latched onto Isabel. And Isabel, she was always a rebel. She could have had a cushy job at the family company, but no, she had to go be an actress. So what if she won an Oscar? It's not a respectable profession. If it weren't for Lily Astor footing the bill for this wedding with a family fortune, she could never pull off something this grand. Shh, be quiet. Are you crazy? You don't gossip about Lily Astor unless you want to lose your tongue. If you ask me, the Astor dynasty is on its last legs. Didn't Miss Astor herself drag home some useless college kid for a husband? The wedding was indeed breathtakingly extravagant. The Astor family's wealth was legendary, but even by their standards, this was on another level. It was as if money was no object. Everything was the absolute best. Business titans from across the city, and even internationally, had flown in for the event, all of them paying respect to Lily Astor. The whole affair was, ironically, far more lavish than Lily's own first wedding. Suddenly, a pair of Astor security guards materialized. "You few," one said, his voice low. "You are not welcome here. Please leave." Without another word, they dragged the gossiping guests away. A chill went through the crowd. Those who had kept their mouths shut breathed a silent sigh of relief, but their awe of the Astor family deepened into fear. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a fortress, monitored and controlled to ensure nothing went wrong. The ceremony began. Sam stood nervously on the altar, surrounded by a sea of unfamiliar, powerful faces. But then he saw Isabel, his only anchor in this storm, and Jax, who stood nearby, giving him a reassuring nod. His heart steadied. He knew what was coming later, and he felt a flutter of apprehension. He knew Lily's personality, solitary, efficient, and intolerant of surprises or defiance. She was the kind of woman who likely despised surprises. But the person who had planned this surprise was Jax. Did that change the equation? After all, in this world, Jax was the one person for whom Lily held an absolute, unconditional bias. The wedding march began, a flawless symphony played by a full orchestra. And then, walking slowly into view, was Isabel. She was radiant in a pure white gown, the picture of bridal bliss. She lifted her head, her eyes locking onto Sam's from across the long, petal-strewn aisle. They shared a smile. In that moment, the grandeur of the wedding, the attention of the entire city, all of it melted away. All that mattered was that their hearts were connected. Isabel was already stunning, but the wedding dress transformed her into a moon goddess. For Sam, who had once been just a fan, seeing the world-famous actress at her most beautiful, walking towards him, felt like a dream. When she reached him and the officiant guided them into an embrace, the reality of it all finally hit him. It was real. He was marrying Isabel Croft. They were going to be husband and wife. White rose petals rained down as the guests mingled on the elegant estate lawn, toasting the newlyweds. Lily watched, her eyes filled with a sincere blessing for her niece. Seeing Isabel find her happiness brought a sense of contentment and joy to her own heart. She was staring at a single white rose petal that had landed in her palm when a familiar presence drew near. She looked up, unsurprised to see Jax, his duties as a de facto groomsman complete. He enjoyed helping with these events, and Lily let him, only reminding him to direct, not exert himself. With enough money, anything else could be arranged. On stage, it was time for the bouquet toss. Isabel stood at the center, holding a bouquet of white lilies of the valley, a symbol of returning happiness. But she didn't turn to throw it. Instead, she took the microphone. "Today is my wedding day," she announced, her voice clear and strong. "And it's a rare day of celebration for the Astor family. I want to pass this bouquet, this happiness, to the person in my family who deserves it most, the person I wish a lifetime of happiness for more than anyone else." Her gaze found Lily in the crowd. "And that person is my aunt, the one and only Lily Astor." A murmur went through the guests. How could a married woman receive the bouquet? Isabel continued, her voice ringing with emotion. "I know what you're thinking, but why should we be defined by rules? In the Astor family, our Miss Astor, our Lily, she makes the rules. Aunt Lily, you taught me not to be limited. You gave me the courage to pursue my dream. You protected me from the protests of the family elders so I could build my career. You once told me you never got the chance to do what you loved, and you wanted me to live that dream for you. But I don't want to be your substitute. I want you to live your own life, to do the things you love, always. So right now, we're breaking the rules. Your first wedding. Your husband wasn't there to share it with you. So this time, he wants to give you the wedding of a lifetime. And we all want to see you walk into your own hall of happiness." As Isabel spoke, every eye in the venue turned to the woman they called the demon queen of the financial world. Lily's first wedding? Many remembered it. She had contractually married a reluctant college student who not only refused to complete the ceremony with her, but wouldn't even say the vows. He hadn't even shown his face. On that day, Lily Astor had stood alone in a dark, forest green gown, receiving guests in an atmosphere so cold it felt like a funeral. The contrast with today's joyous celebration was absolute. It had been a hellish experience. But this time, Miss Astor was different. Her sharp edges were gone, and a genuine smile would bloom on her face whenever Jax was near. Hearing Isabel's words, Lily looked at Jax, her expression one of disbelief. He met her gaze, his own eyes soft, and stepped forward to hold her steady. He leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Lily, I am so sorry. The Jax back then was a fool. He hurt you and failed to give you the unforgettable wedding you deserved. But this time, please, give me a chance to make it right." Then Jax released her, dropped to one knee, and looked up at her, his eyes blazing with sincere, unwavering devotion. Lily asked her, "I love you. Please marry me." They had been through so much, but they had never truly lost each other. "I do. Jack's ghost, my love. I love you too. Always. I will marry you, and we will have our perfect ending. In the time I have left, I will give you everything I am." This time, Jax had paid for everything himself with the money he had earned. He had designed the entire event, down to the ring he now held in his hand. He had designed it months ago, a secret he'd kept close to his heart, having a master craftsman bring it to life. Now, he finally slipped it onto Lily's ring finger. He was no longer a boy, but a man who could shelter his queen from any storm. Lily walked onto the stage and took the bouquet from Isabel. "Izzy," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I promise you, from now on, I'll be myself." Happiness came from within, but it was also given by family. And right now, she loved this big, messy, wonderful family with all her heart. As Jax and Lily took the stage, Isabel and Sam smiled at each other and gracefully stepped down. It was their honor, and Isabel's deepest wish, for their wedding to be the prelude to her aunt and uncle's true happiness. Jax walked to the backdrop, a massive wall of white roses. With a single, powerful push, he sent the entire structure toppling over. As the wall of white collapsed in a blizzard of petals, a new scene was revealed behind it, a glimpse of a wedding so grand, so opulent, it would make history. A wedding of a century. But Lily didn't care about the extravagance. She saw the details. She saw that every single thing she loved, Jax had remembered. He had woven them all into this ceremony, presenting them to her in their most extreme, most perfect form. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. The angelic white was devoured by shadow and blood red. It was as if a garden of black and crimson roses had bloomed from the very depths of hell. Everything about it sent a single, clear message. Lily, being in hell isn't so bad. I'm here with you now. I will share your glory and your damnation, in this life and the next. They were finally one, 100% belonging to each other. The wedding finally healed the last broken piece of Lily's heart. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was proof of Jax's profound love for her. She had never imagined she could be this happy. But how long could this happiness last? Her life, after all, was on a timer. Lily's fear was a shadow that also loomed large in Jax's mind. After settling her in, he once again descended into the basement of the Astor estate. Inside, Cornelius Astor and Theodore Pierce were barely recognizable as human. The cell was dark and damp, and at night, Jax would unleash not only flesh-eating ants, but also a swarm of rats. Life in this dungeon was a living hell. They were old men, pampered their whole lives. They never dreamed that Jax would be so ruthless as to include his own grandfather in the torment. Was this man even human? He was. Another Lily. "This is the last time I'm coming to see you," Jax said, his voice cold as ice. He stood in the shadows, a black trench coat hiding his form, his expression grim and merciless. In his hand, he held Lily's blood-red, thorny bullwhip. He was a terrifying figure, the very image of the devil from their nightmares. For the past month, whenever he had a spare moment, Jax would come down to personally whip them, to slowly pry their fingernails from their beds with bamboo slivers, and to savor their agony. Then he would disinfect their wounds with the finest antiseptic and force the bitterest medicine down their throats, just enough to keep them tethered to life. He was breaking them, like training a hawk, blurring day and night until their minds frayed. It was a torture worse than anything the two coddled old men had ever imagined. Finally, their spirits were on the verge of shattering. At this point, even death seemed a welcome release from being Jax's playthings. Cornelius and Theodore's lips were no longer sealed so tightly. Lily's illness. The reason she won't live past 25 is because she was used as a living blood farm for my son since she was a child. Cornelius cackled, his voice raspy. She was so young then, spoiled and pampered like a little princess. It was all front. The special tonics we fed her were to strengthen her body, to make her better able to withstand the bloodletting that kept my son alive. He let out another wheezing laugh. Old man Pierce here gave me the recipe. A pity we could never find one of the key ingredients. It was never quite as effective as the formula I used with Yin to keep myself young. Ha ha ha, look at my son. He just didn't have the good fortune I did. Whether it was from nostalgia for his pathetic son or sheer madness, Cornelius began to laugh again. Yes, his son had been his inferior in every way. He, at least, had extended his own life by 20 years. Ronan was his own flesh and blood, yet he was a failure. He never even got to benefit from his father's most prized secret of youth. A pity, a real pity. And now, Lily would die for sure, because the only antidote had been destroyed by her own hand when she rebelled and killed her father. That was why he had been so confident, hiding in the estate, patiently waiting for Lily's 25th birthday. Why confront the madwoman directly when he could just outlive her? It was a shame she would never know her illness was incurable. Cornelius's laughter grew louder, a sinister, terrifying sound. Theodore Pierce shot him a venomous look. He hadn't spoken because he knew if the truth came out, he would be the one to bear the most blame. He'd rather wait for Lily to die. But now, before the madwoman could do anything more, it seemed their own lives were forfeit, held in the hands of Jax, a madman who was even more terrifying than Lily. What do you mean? Jax's eyes narrowed into icy slits. The whip in his hand lashed out, striking a relatively untouched patch of flesh on Cornelius's mangled body. The more time he spent down here, delivering this dark justice, the more his own heart shed its fear. He found himself growing interested in this grim, bloody work. The more he struck, the more exhilarated he became. Ha 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 ha. You can beat me to death, but you can't save Lily. It's her own fault for killing her own antidote. If my dear son Ronan were alive, you could grind his bones to a powder, mix it with Pierce's formula, and she might have a chance. But Lily, she already tortured her own father to death, didn't she? It's called reaping what you sow. Ha ha ha. The old man's mad laughter finally revealed the secret he'd guarded so closely. Jax's brow furrowed. He hadn't realized the Astor family history was so brutally cannibalistic. The phrase, man eats man, wasn't a metaphor here. It was literal. Good, Jax said, his voice flat. Then you have no more use. He turned to leave. You can stay here and keep the little friends Lily sent you company. I'll be sure to have you hooked up to an 4-drip, old man. You want to die? It's not that simple. The hell, that was the Astor family. The madness it had forged in Lily. How much pain, how much fear must she have endured? But he was here now. For the rest of their lives, he and Lily would live by a different set of rules. After getting the information, Jax dragged Theodore Pierce out alone. He wasn't entirely sure if Ronan Astor was truly dead. Ever since his own mind had started to align with Lily's, he developed an instinct for his own kind. And his instinct told him Lily would never have granted her father such an easy death. She would have thrown the bastard into some dark, forgotten prison to suffer day and night. Death is never a punishment for the guilty. A life worse than death, that is the ultimate revenge. Getting what he wanted from Theodore was much simpler. Compared to Cornelius, Theodore had a weakness. He had a family. He had his most beloved grandson, Caleb. As long as a man had a weakness, he could be broken. That night, the Pierce family villa in the city's most exclusive district went up in a mysterious, towering inferno. No one knew what happened, only that the family's youngest son, Caleb, was found with all 4 limbs broken and his face disfigured. The 4 older sisters who were home had their hair almost completely burned away. That night became an indelible nightmare seared into their minds. Once Jax went mad, his mind became wonderfully clear. Not only did he get the formula he wanted, but Theodore Pierce became his obedient servant. Even unearthing old family medical journals, he kept hidden and delivering them to Jax. With all the pieces in place, only one thing was missing, Ronan Astor. And that was the easiest part of all. Jax summoned Nathan. Your personal butler, at your service, Nathan said, his loyalty absolute. He had served Miss Astor for years and knew who was really in charge now. When a master gave an order, he obeyed. The final problem was solved. Jax found the dying Ronan Astor. And there, before Nathan's stunned eyes, Jax casually picked up a chainsaw. With a rev and a roar, he walked over and, zip, cut off Ronan's arm. Wait, Master Jax? Just like that? So casually? So skillfully? Holy hell. Nathan remembered when his master was just a sweet, innocent college kid. Now, after spending time with Miss Astor, he had gone completely dark. But this new mental state seemed to suit him. He was more vibrant than ever. Everything was ready. Making the pills was child's play for Jax. Everything he had done in secret, he had done willingly for Lily. It was his responsibility as her man. That night, Jax coaxed Lily to take the pill he'd made before bed. As he held her, a long, deep sigh of relief escaped him. Lily, now we'll never be separated. Our family of 3 will be together forever. He felt a soft whisper against his mind, her voice intertwining with his thoughts. You did well, Jax. We've finally become one. Their minds were in perfect sync, 100% in harmony. No more fear that he wasn't dark enough, or she wasn't light enough. They were now the most intimate parts of each other. Jax leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to Lily's lips, his eyes filled with a gentle smile. Of course, we're husband and wife. We were always one, weren't we? He loved this side of her, her deviously adorable nature. They may be villains, but they were a perfectly matched pair. They would just have to be careful when the baby was born. They'd have to teach their child well, so they didn't turn out like their parents. But then again, a child raised in a world of love probably wouldn't end up like them anyway. Their love was like a poisonous vine, growing and twisting, but it bound them together tighter and tighter until there were no seams left at all.